G'day there guys, I participate in full contact origami on the weekends to blow off steam. It's Markee here, and welcome back to another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now, if you love today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, a like on the video, and tell me what you think of all these down in the comments below. Thank you. Posted by user ThrowRaizg. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not saying I love you to my daughter? My youngest daughter is 22. Whenever she calls, she ends the call with, I love you, and I say, you too. At our last talk, right when we were about to get off the line, she asked, why don't you ever say I love you back? I told her because meaningful love is shown through actions. And she said, I want you to say it. And I said, sweetie, you can't force me to say it. Then she said, then I guess I won't talk to you again until you're ready. I thought she was joking, but when I walked into the living room today, my wife was on the phone with her and she said, wait, hun, your dad just walked in. And she said that she didn't want to talk to me unless I said I loved her. Even my wife laughed because, listen, nobody on my side of the family says I love you. My parents never said it to my siblings and I, my biological uncles and aunts don't say it, and my grandparents don't say it. They would say things like, I'm proud of you. You make me so happy. I'm so glad you're my child. I don't know what I would do without you, and so on. All things I've told my children growing up. We believe that love is given and shown through actions. So I get awkward when girlfriends would say it and expect me to say it back. I never did. I never said I love you to my wife or any of my 4 daughters or 3 sons or anybody in my whole life. But what I think it is that my older children grew up when a lot of my side of the family was still alive, so they understood where I got it from. My youngest daughter mostly grew up around my wife's family, who says I love you all the time. Still, some people might say, oh, just say it. It won't cost you anything. But to me, it will. It's cheap to me. By saying it, it would feel to me that all the love I've shown to her through my actions over the years were meaningless. OP, I'm gonna be honest here, that's a cop-out. That's a complete cop-out, you saying that. I don't believe you. To her, I love you is shown through spoken word. We all have different love languages. Yours was through actions, hers is through words because that's the environment she's been raised in, and you know that's the environment she's raised in. She's not getting that same intention from you, she's seeing your actions and she's judging you by those actions. She feels loved because the actions you're showing to her are not ones that she correlates with love. I think this is a cop-out, because saying I love you is still an action and you're showing your love through going the extra mile for her. Just because you're uncomfortable with it, it's your daughter after all, and does your daughter not deserve to feel loved? Your actions of telling her, it isn't real if I say I love you, I can say everything else you wouldn't understand, that's directly showing her that you don't love her in this moment. That's not fair on your daughter. Go the extra mile, do it for her, and eventually I believe you will change your mind. You're the a-hole in this situation. You're the a-hole. So you don't love her? Because otherwise, why won't you say it? You're just telling the truth. Just because you show it by actions doesn't mean that you can't also say it once in a while. This refusal to say I love you reminds me of those people who never say sorry. My mum's like that. She's of the opinion that apologizing doesn't change the thing that happened, so there's no point. But you don't apologize for yourself or to undo the things that you did to hurt someone. You apologize because it shows the other person that you acknowledge you hurt them, and you want to affirm their feelings. It's the same with saying you love someone. You do it for them, not for you. My parents never apologized to me or each other when I was growing up, because they bought into the whole family means never having to say you're sorry thing. And honestly, it gave me a really messed up view of families and relationships. I don't understand why people insist on being like my parents or OP. I grew up in a family that doesn't apologize. We just went to our separate corners until we weren't angry anymore. Then ignored that anything happened. It's taken me a hot second to undo that habit. Screaming matches at 4 p.m, silence from everyone for 3 hours, laughing together while listening to music at 7 p.m. No apologies ever spoken by anyone. I think the dog is the only one that ever gets apologized to. Hella functional, lol. OP, your daughter is telling you that the best way you can show it to her is to say it. You're the a-hole. I was on the fence until I read this one. I don't like to say I love you either, because I feel like the less often I say it, the more it means. Plus, words of affirmation is my lowest ranking love language. However, OP's daughter basically just told them, this is my love language, I have a hard time hearing yours. And OP basically replied with, I don't care, I'm using mine, deal with it. Which is not how that works. You're the a-hole. Edit, just to clarify, I didn't mean to imply the more I say it, the less it means. When I said, the less I say it, the more it means. One can absolutely say I love you a billion times a day, and it can still mean just as much. Let's say she dies tomorrow, and you find a letter that says, I wish you would have said it just once. Tomorrow night, will you wish you would have said it? Because she's basically writing that letter now. She's just not dead yet. Posted by user Side Kara Maya, titled, Am I the a-hole for announcing my engagement at my twin sister's wedding? My twin sister and I, both 24, have always had some kind of weird rivalry. It's never really came from my side, always hers. Our dad left our family when we were 10, and because she wasn't that close to our mum and I was, it created the resentment she now has for me. We have ups and downs in terms of our relationship. About a week ago, my sister got married to her boyfriend of 1 year. I've never really liked their relationship, nor did I approve of them getting married so soon, but I went to the wedding. My fiancé and I got engaged about a week beforehand, and due to her wedding, she asked if I would keep it under the radar until after the wedding, which I hesitantly agreed to. To me, it was just a sign of insecurity. My fiancé and I have been together for almost 7 years. She shacked up with the first person who showed interest. The wedding comes and it's all fine until the reception. It was fairly large and a lot of people who I hadn't seen since we graduated high school were there, so I obviously took it as a chance to catch up. I've just got engaged. I'm not going to go take my ring off to appease my sister, so naturally, I got questions which I honestly responded to. I didn't go out of my way to tell anybody we were engaged, but if someone asked, I'd told them, which I don't see anything wrong with. It's unlikely I'll see many of the attendees again, so why should I have to wait? Towards the end of the night, my mum and sister pulled me aside, absolutely furious with me, saying I'd made the night all about me, which I absolutely hadn't. It was a quick congratulations with each conversation, and that was it. I didn't get on top of the stage and announce it. They've both cut me off for apparently being incapable of letting other people have their time to shine, and pretty much everyone in our family and close circle of friends has told me I'm in the wrong. Am I the a-hole? I initially thought that it was an everyone sucks here judgment, because you shouldn't be expected to take your engagement ring off after you get engaged. It kind of seems silly to tell that to someone. But at the same time, he absolutely had the choice to do it just for this wedding, for people he'd never see again, because it doesn't matter. Like he said, it doesn't matter if these people know that he's engaged because they're not going to see him again. So this flipped my thought process to empathizing with the married family, thinking that, oh, he kind of is upstaging it. He definitely has the choice to not do it, and he's still doing it anyway. That does make him an a-hole, regardless of how he thinks he wants to justify this one. I think it's simply unacceptable to announce relationship goals like that, especially engagements. Engagements, even if it's in this form, it's a no-go at someone else's wedding. Please just don't do it. Control yourself. It hasn't been formally announced yet, and this is a pseudo-announcement of sorts, going around at the wedding doing it. It absolutely breaks that rule. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole, everyone else has told you so. Why are you expecting a different answer here? The way you wrote about the situation and the way you went about it sounds so slimy and snaky. If you didn't want to do it, then you should have said no when they asked you to keep it under wraps. Definitely not a one-sided rivalry, and you're not as innocent as you make yourself out to be. Right? OP said she was close with her mum. If the mum is calling them an a-hole, that says a lot. I'm very close with my mum, and she'll call me out if I do something crappy, and if she thinks something I did was an a-hole move, then I know I was definitely in the wrong. The weird thing is, OP doesn't give any examples of what the sister did that would indicate they were in competition. OP, you're the a-hole. Stop thinking you're so high and mighty because you have more time in a relationship under your belt. They could be totally compatible and form a deep connection in a year's time. Stop being crappy. You're the a-hole. Why is it a sign of insecurity that your sis doesn't want you running around telling everyone about your engagement at her own wedding? It's her day. Let her have it. Not gonna lie, I got some kind of pleasure and glee reading both her mother and sister went no contact with her, and most likely more will too. Maybe one day she will learn to be a bit less of a horrible human. Posted by user No Crap Sherlock 1. Titled, Am I the a-hole for calling out a girl who was acting like a hoe during dinner at a restaurant? Excuse me? I, 21 female, don't make friends all that easy. I'm picky about who I want to hang out with because I believe you really need to vibe to be friends. That said, I'm not normally a mean person, just selective with who I really let into my life. My boyfriend, 22 male, knows this and asked if I wanted to go to dinner with a few of his military buddies. We are both in the army, so this would be a great way for me to make some friends since I tend to vibe pretty well with other military people. Anyway, so we go to this dinner at a family restaurant, and there's 3 other guys and an Air Force girl. I crap you not when I say she was acting like a hoe all night, and I immediately didn't like her. Some examples of her behavior. 1. Calls her 2-year-old kid a crotch goblin and brags that she pawns him off to her mother because she hates how much he cries. 2. Mentioned loudly and several times that she's slept with 2 of the guys also eating dinner. Also, very in-depth description of said sexual encounters. 3. Told my boyfriend that she was going to steal me from him and showed me a picture of her breasts. 4. Asked my boyfriend if he would eat her ass later, winked, and slipped him her number. There's more, but for the sake of the post, I'll stop there. So at one point, one of the guys was showing us a picture of a guy's dick that had been bitten by a snake. He's fine now. As a medic, I really wanted to see purely out of curiosity. She kept trying to get him to put the phone away and making a huge deal about how we were in a public restaurant and it wasn't appropriate. I had had too many drinks at this point and finally snapped and said something like, "Why the hell are you suddenly concerned about your public image? You've been acting like a hoe all night, and obviously you've seen plenty of dick. Can't handle one more?" She got ticked off and left in a huff after throwing water in my food, and called me a tramp. The guys all laughed and said that she had it coming, but I feel kinda bad. Am I the a-hole? ETA forgot to mention that she kept grabbing one of the guy's dicks after he said no, and had just had his fiancée of 5 years leave him for a friend. ETA, I apologize for not making it clear, but the rest of the group tried to politely get her to stop several times, both groping and comments. We were actually all being fairly respectful, but she really took it to another level. Also, none of us were drunk, just having a few drinks with our meal. Unpopular opinion here, I'm gonna say that OP was not the a-hole. If it was a guy in the same situation, you wouldn't really think a woman saying that to him for groping women and doing all that and being so abrasive, she wouldn't be an a-hole. She would be in the right because it would be her protecting her friends from someone harassing them and not taking no for an answer. I think she did this in a very confrontational and drunk way, but given how this woman was interacting with the group and the level of drunkenness, and then this sudden change in tune saying, "Oh, put that dick pic away," I think it's fully acceptable what OP did. I think it's not the a-hole. I think everyone sucks here could be applied to the situation, although I personally don't agree with it. Everyone sucks here. Lots of rude behavior here for a public place. It sounds like she has a lot of issues and you didn't respond well, but then it sounds like you also have some stuff to work out since you drank too much, as you said yourself, and were part of the rowdiness, sharing the dick pic in a family restaurant until you weren't. For real, is this just the military culture or something? I was cringing the entire time. Like, it's all good, everyone's just sleeping together, etc. Getting drunk in a family restaurant and looking at pics of a snake butt and a dick? Name-calling, etc.? Like, reserve this behavior for your own home. Don't inflict it on other people in a restaurant. And yes, OP, I was cringing at your comment to her as well. It all seems so trashy to me, like everyone needs to learn to behave in public. OP says, I was drinking, yes, but I was far from rowdy. Honestly, she was making a scene the entire time. I was trying to get to know the other people, but she kept taking over the conversation. We got a lot of crappy looks throughout the night, and literally all of them were directed at her. I guarantee you they weren't just directed at her. Also, we were in a corner where no one would be able to see anything, but they could certainly hear it all. Tables were far enough apart, for obvious reasons, that no one would have been able to see that there was a deformed dick pic. Which means that, in a family restaurant, people could hear you talking about some guy's snake-bitten dick. And I highly doubt that it was the only inappropriate conversation that you had at your table. I agree with the everyone sucks here verdict. Obviously, the woman who sexually harassed you and your boyfriend, and sexually assaulted someone sucks more. But you and the rest of your group seem like you don't know how to behave like normal people in public either. Pro tip, don't discuss anyone's genitals in public. Also, I hope the dude who had his dick bitten gave consent for that photo to be shared. If not, the guy sharing it with you was the a-hole for that reason too. Posted by user 43, titled, Am I the a-hole for walking out of my house in shock over my wife's priorities? Would just like to preface this by saying I, 37 male, walked out not in malicious protest, but because I wanted to cool off. So here goes. My wife, 38 female, and my daughter, 11, got into a jockey discussion about alien invasions and apocalyptic situation. Then my daughter asks if my wife would protect her in this situation, and my wife says, I love you more than I'll love anybody else in the world. Yes, she says that in front of me. My wife then puts her arm around my shoulder and goes on to say that her father, aka me, and I, would use each other as shields against any danger that comes to her, meaning she'd gladly sacrifice me. At that point, I picked up my keys and said, gee, thanks, go ahead and start lunch without me. My wife suddenly gets self-righteous and says there was no way I could expect to choose a spouse over a kid. I feel like she just had a crap on our entire marriage and life vows. And the principle aside, the fact I was furious I think should have been enough to excuse me leaving the house. So I left the house and drove around to cool off. Then I went over to my sister's house because I told her how upset I was, and as a result, she and her spouse invited me to have dinner with them. I may have ignored some calls from my wife, but she knew where I was, and in addition, I just couldn't see her or be in the house at that moment. I always felt like my wife loved the kids more than me, and it hurts. The fact that she would hypothetically and just casually throw me to the wolves was making me question if I loved her more than she loved me, and if so, why I bothered to give her my loyalty. When there could be other women, like my sister, who valued their spouse more than anything. Am I the a-hole? Not for my beliefs, but for the fact that I took the time to cool off. I needed this time because I was seriously and suddenly regretting a lot of the sacrifices I made for this woman when it wasn't like I didn't have other options. Women in their early 20s who have hit on me, but who I ignored in favor of the woman who I thought would put me first. Jesus Christ, dude, you have some problems. You have some serious problems going on. Why has this one hypothetical situation just unraveled your entire reality? These are just insecurities gone wild, it seems like. I really think you need to have a sit down and talk to your wife about this because you two are obviously not on the same page. Maybe if you have an in-depth discussion with her and understand where she's coming from and why she's saying that, and maybe that it's not okay to say that you'd sacrifice your kids to your kids, how that wouldn't be a cool thing. I don't know, man. I feel like you've just jumped at the first sign of, oh my god, my wife wouldn't do the same for me, without thinking of everything surrounding this. It's a bit crazy. Get some help. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole, and you should consider therapy to find out why your emotional growth was stunted in your teens. This really sounds like it was written by a crazy person. I kept waiting for it to make sense, but it just never did. But wait, did you read the bit about him not banging hot women in their 20s? He could have done it if he'd known his wife would save his child over him, you see. So it makes perfect sense. You're the a-hole, obviously. This man is absolutely fudging delusional. Who in the hell gets this upset at their spouse for saying that in such an extreme hypothetical scenario, they would protect their child over their spouse? He sounds so similar to my father, I've been laughing for a good minute. My father said very similar things throughout my childhood, to me and my sis, so I believe people like this exist. My father will complain all the time that my mum cared more about me and my sister than him. I am so happy that she left him. After she left him, it was, I don't know why I stayed with your mother. I had women half my age all over me, and I always refused them. I was a professional bartender for many years in an affluent northern VA suburb, and I swear, every single divorced guy that hit on me said the same thing. After we had kids, I took a back seat on her priorities. And I always thought, maybe if you helped with the kids, she would have had more time for you, guy. Being jealous of your own kids is ridiculous, but very common. You're the a-hole, dude. You are way overreacting about a stupid hypothetical scenario. What exactly did you want your wife to say to your daughter? Oh, of course I wouldn't save you, sweetie. And your daddy wouldn't either. We would both let you die because daddy is the most important person in this house. And yes, storming out of the house like a child and refusing to answer the phone makes you even more of an a-hole than getting your fifis hurt just because you think you should be put before your child. Not to mention his addendum that he basically chose to marry this woman over better options. Dude, please. Because he thought this woman would mollycoddle him the most, and has a temper tantrum because his chosen doormat dares to care about the feelings of their minor children over his fifis. Posted by user ThrowRAAFs, titled, Am I the a-hole for not inviting my daughter to a family gathering? My ex-wife and I split amicably when our daughters were 16, 14, and 12. My oldest daughter told me that she hated me and that she wished I wasn't her father. The last time I tried to speak to her was at her graduation. I stood off to the side as she took pictures. My other two daughters ran over and hugged me, but my oldest daughter pretended not to see me until her friends started pointing to me and saying, I think that's your father. She came over and said, Why do you have to ruin everything? I left, and my ex ran up to the car as I was about to pull off and asked what had happened. I told her, and she said, I'm so sorry, and sat in the car and cried with me. Then she got angry and wanted to make my daughter apologize, but I told her to leave it alone because she was 18 now, and it was supposed to be her day. My daughter called later on and left an apology on my voicemail, which was obviously forced. I didn't even respond. Come on, man. The years passed, and I got to experience everything I missed with my younger daughters. I was there to intimidate their boyfriends when they went to prom. Ha! I took pictures with them at graduation. I saw them go off to college. Now my daughters are 26, 24, and 22. The oldest one reached out to me and asked if we could meet up. When we did, she said she was sorry for everything and hoped that we could just move on, and I asked her to be more specific and tell me what exactly she was sorry for. But she just went silent, so I told her, when you're ready to talk again, call me. Oh, dude. I had a little family get-together, just a little cookout with my wife, my ex-wife and her husband, and my two daughters and their husbands. Everyone knew about the graduation incident, so they knew why my oldest daughter wasn't there. But at some point during the cookout, my oldest daughter called one of my youngest daughters, and when she found out about the gathering and that I didn't invite her, she started crying and hung up. What's wrong with these people and abusing others in their lives, especially their kids? Do we just not have a paternal instinct to be like, you know what? These kids are young. They make mistakes. We gotta just allow them to make the mistakes and hurt people and then learn from the hurt they cause so that we can lead them to be better people. And in fact, us shutting them down and stunting their growth like that is not conducive to proper mental health. It does nothing for anyone besides hurt them. And me being a child will only continue to hurt my daughter. I don't know what screw went loose in OP's head where he did these very malicious things to his daughter, who obviously was just going through a stage in her life where, it's normal for us to be like, don't take pictures of me, you're embarrassing me. They don't understand it, they're not you. So you're the a-hole for doing what you've done. She might have been the a-hole a decade ago, but you're it now. Her behavior was unkind and hurtful, and it's okay to still be hurt over it, but it's been 8 years since her graduation. She tried to reach out, and it seems like you were merely focused on having your feelings about her teenage behavior validated by asking her to list her transgressions for you, rather than actually re-establishing a relationship. And if you decide that you don't want a relationship with her, then that's your choice. But you're going to have to accept that it's your choice, not just her fault. She may have been the one to damage the relationship to begin with, but if she's trying to reach out and you're shooting her down, that's on you. Although the post doesn't go into detail about why the daughter hates him, from personal experience, children rarely hate their parents for no reason. There is missing information here. Ding ding ding. And if the father cannot even fathom why the oldest child, who statistically does the worst in divorces, amicable and otherwise, would have a grudge or some bad feelings in their teens, then he wasn't doing his due diligence. You are the a-hole, OP. The years went by, and you didn't even respond even if the apology was forced? You could have been the bigger person or parent and said, I can understand having confusing and mixed feelings. You were harsh, but it was your day. You apologized, and I appreciate that. I'll always be your father, and whenever you feel like you're ready to talk, I'll be here to listen, kiddo. Not the a-hole. A bunch of folks on here have no idea how adult apologies work. It is far more than just saying the words. You don't get credit for showing up and speaking, you have to put in the effort to resolve the hurt and move forward together. She did nothing close to what was needed and expected for him to carry through the burden while she still acted like a child. She is 26, so that does not fly anymore. His party, he gets to invite who he feels comfortable with and wants to spend time around. Just like when it was her day, she got to dictate that he not be around. Agreed. When I read she just wanted to move on, I rolled my eyes. Like, pretend nothing happened? Not even acknowledge that she was the a-hole? Posted by user throwaway4193729. Titled, Am I the a-hole for siding with my husband instead of my daughter? I want to start off by making it clear that my husband is also my daughter's father. He's not a stepdad, he is her dad. Last month, my daughter came home to spend the weekend with us. I had to run errands on Sunday morning, and when I got back, I found my daughter screaming and cursing at my husband. I asked both of them what happened, but my daughter just walked off. I found out from my husband that he made a joke, and she was upset because she didn't like it. My husband can have a strange sense of humor, so this wasn't a surprise. I heard the joke, and I think it wasn't exactly a good joke, but that still doesn't give her the right to scream at her father in his own house like that. I found my daughter upstairs, and since I didn't think she'd be willing to speak to her father just yet, asked her to take some time to cool off, and then apologize for yelling. This made her start yelling at me about how she wasn't going to apologize, she was expecting an apology. If she didn't get one, she was going to leave. I didn't think he needed to apologize for a joke, even if it was in bad taste, and our daughter ended up leaving. It's been almost a month, and we haven't heard from her. She won't reply to our texts or calls, but her sister has been talking with her, so we know she's getting them. I'm starting to think I should have pressed my husband to apologize to her. Am I the a-hole? Edit. From what I understand, this is what happens. Our daughter usually wears a lot of makeup. It's a bit of a hobby for her. That Saturday, she came downstairs without putting it on, and my husband started laughing. Then he said, "Did you ever let your ex-boyfriend see you like that? No wonder he left." That's when she started screaming at him. Of course, he didn't mean it, it was just a joke. Unfortunately, he was the only one who found it funny. But I don't think it's something to cut contact with us over. Dude, that is so unnecessarily harsh to say to your daughter, even if it's your stepdaughter, Jesus Christ. Why do you think that's an okay thing to say? That's not funny. Especially if you both, as the parents of this daughter, know that she's sensitive to things like that. Why did he think that was a good idea? And then you backing him up makes this even worse. You're not even defending your own flesh and blood. You're just like, oh, calm down. He's just attacking your insecurities and the reason that someone left you alone. God, why are you freaking out so much? You both suck. I feel bad for this daughter. You're the a-hole and so is your husband. That joke was horrible and insensitive. Your daughter has a right to be upset, and the fact you're defending him makes you a pretty crappy parent. It's fairly telling that she didn't include the joke in the original post, because deep down she knows her daughter has the right to be upset. Imagine asking someone to apologize for getting upset that someone called you ugly, and that's the reason your significant other left you. Right? And given her reaction, I'm pretty sure that this is not the first, second, or even 10th time he's said something like that to her. You're the a-hole. Bingo. I doubt this is because of a joke. It's probably because of a lifetime of that crap. Even if that wasn't the case, still, you're the a-hole. It was a joke, lighten up, is what a-holes say to people they just said something crappy to as a way to shift the blame for their crappiness to the other person. What your husband said was insensitive and cruel, and you supported him over your daughter, who was obviously hurt by her father's nasty comment. You're the a-hole, and your husband is a giant a-hole too. Posted by user ThrowRaXBH. Titled, Am I the a-hole for throwing one of my twin daughters over a fence while being chased by a dog? My husband was having headaches, so I decided to go to the pharmacy to get him some medication, and I took my daughters with me. I don't think it was that late, but it was pretty dark out. We could have took the car, but the pharmacy is only a couple of blocks away from our house, and the twins wanted to walk. Besides, our neighborhood is pretty peaceful, and I thought it would be good exercise. While we were walking, a dog started barking and lunging at us. We didn't pay it too much attention because it was on a chain. We went to the pharmacy, got the medicine, and on our way back we passed the dog again. Again, it started barking and lunging at us, but this time the chain snapped. I saw a black mass moving fast towards us in my peripheral, and I just picked up my daughters and ran. My daughters are both 5, that's like 40 pounds each. But adrenaline strength is real. I used to run track in high school and college, but nowhere near as fast as I was running in that moment with 2 kids and a plastic bag full of medication. However, the dog was right behind me and my daughter on the left side was slipping, and I didn't want her to fall and get eaten or bit by a dog. We were passing a house with a fence and I kinda tossed her over the fence into the lawn and kept running with my other daughter. A guy had just parked his car and got out, and I started running to him screaming help, and he chased the dog away and walked with me while I went back to go get my daughter. She was unhurt, but she was crying and saying I left her, and why couldn't I have thrown her sister instead? No. We get home and my husband asks us what took us so long. I tell him, we got chased by a dog. And before I could tell the whole story, our daughter blabs, "Mummy threw me over the fence," and runs to him and starts crying. He looks at me upset and demands to know what happened. After I finished telling him, I thought he would understand, But he starts saying things like, what if she got hurt? What if she fell on some glass and cut herself? What if the dog stopped chasing you and jumped over the fence at her? I was already feeling guilty, and I wound up saying, okay, sorry, I get it. But he kept going, no, you don't get it, blah blah blah, and I yelled at him, what should I have done then, huh? And here's your stupid medication. Next time, get it yourself. I swear, I was going to throw the bag at his stupid face, but they were all staring at me in shock because I'm not really a yeller and I felt bad. I threw the bag on the counter instead and went to our room and slammed the door. I did tuck the kids in for bed later, and I had to apologize to them because they said, Mummy, when you yelled at Daddy you said the S word, i.e. stupid. Anyway, my husband has kind of been tiptoeing around downstairs, and I want him to come to bed already. But I know we have to finish talking about this incident, and I just wanted some perspective on this. I don't think you suck in this situation. I really do think you were looking after your child, and you didn't really have an option. What, you're going to drop that child and just let it get mauled by a dog? That's unacceptable, and in the heat of the moment, our monkey brain switches on and we do what we can with the best of our abilities. Sure, she got thrown over a fence, but it's better than the latter happening and her getting attacked. There is really no wiggle room in this one. At least you were telling the truth, and at least you got it out there. I think you guys just need to reconcile and move on from this one. The kids are not hurt, and peace is back. Not the a-hole. Your instincts kicked in. Better her with a broken arm than mauled by a dog and traumatized. Husband wasn't there, so he has no say. At least OP did it with the idea of protecting her child in her head. Child slipping plus fence equals safe behind barrier. Unlike the mum who left her child behind in the middle of the road with a car hydroplaning towards him. Or the dude who thinks his wife should protect him first if the apocalypse happened. Sorry kids, gotta make sure your grown-ass father is safe before I look after you. That was so stupid, that was the last episode. I can't believe some people, man. Not the a-hole. This is no different from violently shoving someone out of the way of a speeding car. The way we physically interact with someone's body when we believe it is in imminent mortal danger is obviously much more aggressive. Shoving, throwing, tackling than what anyone would normally do. You made a split-second decision to throw your daughter into the safety of an enclosed space rather than risk her, or all three of you, being mauled due to slowing down. Yes, it was a risk, but it was harm reduction, a reasonable risk. I understand your husband was probably freaked out, but it was unreasonable for him to suggest that weighing the relative risks of snarling dog thundering towards us and possibility of glass on the other side of fenced-in yard is at all easy or clear-cut. You did not have time to run through all the what-ifs, and it's silly to expect anyone to do so in an emergency. Standing there dilly-dallying about all the possible outcomes could have gotten you or your children bitten. Saying, no, you don't get it, is domineering and patronizing. He's the one who wasn't there. He should have the trust and humility to consider that he might not be the one who gets it, and get the full story from his partner instead of a 5-year-old. And it's a bit concerning that his first reaction was to lecture you instead of, ask what happened and if you're okay. Posted by user NoZucchini4614. Titled, Am I the a-hole for going to work for a few days to teach my husband a lesson? Okay, I get the title sounds horrible, but hear me out. I have a 12-year-old son and a 13-month-old. Before the pandemic, I worked part-time, went to school part-time, and took care of the house and kids when not doing the other two. Since the pandemic, I became a stay-at-home mum, still going to school, taking care of the house and kids. But now with the school back in session and my son doing e-learning, I also help a lot with that. I have a pretty strict schedule that I keep for myself to allow me to get household chores and the schooling for myself and my son done each day. One day last week I had a migraine. Nothing I did helped ease it. At some point after 3 p.m., after my son was out of school and baby was down for a nap, I laid on the couch to try and help the migraine, which did help. My husband came home while I was sleeping and was already in a crap mood and yelled at me that I didn't do anything all day except sleep, eat, and get fat. I tried to explain to him that I hadn't been feeling well and napped because of that. He said that was an excuse, and how would I like it if I went to work all day and he was home with the children and I came in and he was asleep on the couch? I said I would assume that you were tired or not feeling well. Husband took a few days off work. I made arrangements with a friend to do temp work with her. I went to work for a few days, leaving him my daily schedule as a guide. The first day he called me 20 times because he couldn't handle my son's schoolwork, couldn't handle taking care of the baby, couldn't even go to the bathroom without one of them needing something. The second day, he called me 10 times with the same complaints. Both days, he was asleep on the couch because he was exhausted from trying to keep up with the kids and housework. I went to work the third day. He showed up with the kids and dropped them off without saying anything to me or my friend. Luckily, my friend didn't mind. When I got home the third evening, he was asleep on the couch. I let him sleep, I mowed the grass, pulled weeds, cleaned up the house, made dinner. I tried to wake him for dinner. He refused to wake up. Got the kids bathed and ready for bed before he woke up. Husband barely did the minimum of caring for the house and kids while I worked. He said I did it to make him look like a crap parent. I said no. I did it to teach you a lesson that just because you don't see me actively doing something when you come home doesn't mean that I haven't done anything all day. This all started because you refused to let me tell you I had a migraine and was just barely able to function that day. Luckily, my oldest knows what he needs to do for schoolwork, just sometimes needs some help with it. Baby is up at 7 but goes down for a nap at 12, and he sleeps for 3 to 4 hours. Am I the a-hole for trying to get my husband to see what I do on a daily basis? I'm surprised you allowed him to drop the kids to your work while you're doing some temp work for your friend and just didn't make a show of it. I would have kicked his ass for doing that to me. Who the hell does he think he is? He's a parent. He doesn't get to just nod out on these responsibilities. You're genuinely letting him get off the easy way here. I'd give you an everyone sucks here for not letting him learn his lesson the hard way. But ultimately, it's a not the a-hole because you're doing it a much softer way. You know your husband, you know how he ticks. Hey, that's respectable, that's commendable. You're showing him that you're the alpha in this relationship and he's the beta. Nothing wrong with that. You just show that you have a better ability to parent than he does, by the looks of it. And your emotional and mental strength is much stronger than his. Not the a-hole, but don't let him do that to you again, please. Yelled at me that I didn't do anything all day except sleep, eat, and get fat. Not the a-hole. I'm surprised you're tolerating that type of verbal abuse, and I would highly recommend therapy and also a divorce attorney. Update to clarify my position, since several people are clutching their pearls at the mere mention of the D word. I would like to point out that I recommended a divorce attorney, not a divorce. For anyone experiencing spousal abuse, verbal, emotional, or physical, simply thinking of your exit strategy can be overwhelming and scary. Speaking with a divorce attorney can do several things. 1. It can help you understand the laws of your state and the legal options available to you during the process. 2. It can give you a sense of timeline and understand how the process would work in the court system. 3. It can give you an understanding of the division of custody and marital assets. Armed with this information, you will be able to have better control over a situation should the need arise. You'd never berate someone for speaking with an investment advisor for information or consulting a doctor for a second opinion, so I'm not sure why consulting an attorney to understand how divorce works should continue to be so stigmatized by society. And Lilu Pipu, great name, says, please read this free book, OP, it will change your life. And there should be a link to that I've pinned in the comments below if you'd like to read it. Sunday's Child says, this book has helped me so much trying to understand my soon-to-be ex-husband's treatment of me. It's amazing. Please read. Yes, when I read it, it changed my life. I could finally make sense of what has happened and learn to take back my autonomy and personhood. This book is important for anyone to read. Not the a-hole. Husband barely did the minimum of caring for the house and kids while I worked. He said I did it to make him look like a crap parent. No. I didn't do it to make you look like a crap parent. I did it to show that you were being a crappy person to me. But apparently I'm not done, if you still have not learned the lesson. Posted by user GloomyBread5596. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that it was bad parenting for her to take a pregnancy test with our daughter in the bathroom with her? My wife had already taken one test and gotten a faint positive. She was fairly sure she was pregnant because of that and the symptoms she had been experiencing. So when she tested a few days later, she asked our daughter if she wanted to do it with her. Our daughter did, so they took the test together. I only found out later when the test confirmed my wife was pregnant, and she told me. I let my wife know that I thought this was bad parenting. Our daughter, 10, is still too young to be exposed to things like that, and certainly up close. There was no reason or justification for it. I have never heard of a mother doing a pregnancy test together with her daughter, and even if it was a thing, it would still be wrong in my view. She also should have asked me first before she did something like this. I don't think this decision should have been made unilaterally. All of this makes it a really poor decision, in my opinion. My wife doesn't agree. She felt it was a bonding experience and an opportunity for her and our daughter to talk about their bodies and educate her more on pregnancy and the reproductive system. She thinks I owe her an apology for saying she acted like a bad parent in that situation. I disagree. Not sure if either or both of us are being the a-hole. I mean, I don't think that she's the a-hole in this situation. It's her daughter, and she can educate the daughter on her body in whatever way she'd like. I'm sure that's not perfectly putting it into words how it should be said, but I'm dumb. And I just think that the OP in this situation is going about it so wrong. He's just like, no, you can't do it because I don't think this is the way it should be done. It should be done unilaterally, and even then, I don't agree with it. Like, that's no way to parent. That's no way to marriage. That's no way to get along with another human being. You don't just lay down the law. You talk with them. Why did they do it? Why did you think it wasn't a good idea? Why do they think that you're wrong? Why do you think they're wrong? And where can we come to a middle ground here? You are just not allowing any room for discussion here, OP. You suck, and I think you need to just learn that it was okay what she did. You're the a-hole. You do realize your daughter could start her period any day now, or any time in the next 2 years, and all your wife did was pee on a stick and talk about hormones and fertility cycles. I'm betting. You're the a-hole. 10 is not too young. My oldest started sex ed and puberty talks at 10 in school. You're the a-hole. I'm not sure any man, even the father, should try to criticize a mother for teaching her daughter about things related to reproduction. Certainly demonstrating that mummy can learn at home if she's pregnant or not isn't the first step in the decline and fall of the traditional family, or whatever it is you hold dear. Nor should she be required to ask her husband's permission before talking to a female child about her own experiences. This is a natural way to learn. What do you think happened before sex ed? They watched their mothers get pregnant and give birth, or learned on a farm or with pets. Sex exists in the wild without parental permission. You're the a-hole. Posted by user BeneficialTough879. Titled, Am I the a-hole? I lied about having a college fund for my stepsister to save my sister. I am 32 female. I grew up with a narcissistic mum. I have never met my dad. The first hug I have received in my life was at age 10 years old when Dan, my mum's boyfriend, hugged me when I thanked him for a gift. My mum had my sister a year later. My sister was the perfect baby sister anyone could ask for. Mum and Dan split, and at first, Mum had major custody of my sister. Mum did the same thing to my sister she did to me. doesn't even acknowledge us in the room if she was not in the mood, not feeding us dinner if we made a mistake, made everything our fault. When Dan found out, he applied for full custody for my sister, but my mother fought and somehow wrangled 50% of custody. Things got real bad for me, and the only silver lining was my sister. Despite being only 4 years old, she would sneak in snacks from her dad for me to eat. Anything Dan bought for her, he also bought for me. He wasn't wealthy by any means, but it was the small things, and anytime he dropped my sister, he will take his time to talk to me. He was the only father I have ever known. Dan died of cancer when I was 16, and my sister 5. He lived only 3 months from the diagnosis, but settled everything financially as able as he can for my sister. He split his assets 75% for my sister and 25% for me to be given to me when I reached 18. Knowing my mum very well, he made me the executor of my sister's fund too. To say my mum was furious was an understatement. She literally made the next 2 years of my life and my sister's a living hell. When my mum started dating Brad, he already had a daughter 3 years younger than my sister. My mum had made it absolutely clear that my sister will be allowed to go to college only if she shares her trust fund with our sister. Brad is a piece of work, and me and my sister never really bonded with our stepsister. She refused to sign anything related to my sister's education unless I give her my word that I will give my stepsister equal half of the trust fund. This is where I think I was the a-hole. I held the trust fund above my mum's head to treat my sister fairly. I repeatedly told them that I'll give my stepsister half the fund until my stepsister was 18 and moved to college. Once she moved out, we both cut any contact we had with our mum and blocked her. I made my sister give her the wrong college info, so our mum couldn't contact her. I have found out through a few friends my mum didn't know I have that my stepsister couldn't get into any college because she didn't want to apply for any loans, and she is very depressed. I know I misled them, but I honestly wanted my sister to be safe. Am I the a-hole for causing my stepsister's depression and robbing her of college? I'm gonna go with not the a-hole here. Do you want to be stuck in contact with that crazy lady? Is this the price you're going to have to pay? It's one of these situations where it's like, do we let the train hit 5 people, or do we pull the lever and it hits 1 people? And I don't know about you, but I'll take the 1 people over the 5 people any day. But then again, the situation may not even be calling for that. The mum was just using them for money. It's not money that they were entitled to. The OP strung the mum along the only way she could, and she got the outcome that everyone deserved, I'd say. There's always next year if she wants to go to college. She can always apply for loans then. There is more way than one to use someone else's money to get into college. So, ultimately, OP is not the a-hole, and God bless. Edit. Thank you to everyone for your reassurance. I showed this post to my sister, and the only thing she had to say was, duh. We both have discussed and decided to not contact our stepsister. We were never close to her, and my friends back there can't safely get any message to her without dragging our mum into it, which is the last thing that we both want. Not the a-hole. You did what you needed to do to protect your baby sister, and for that, you should be proud. Your mother was trying to deny her the right to an education in order to rob her. You were justified in saying whatever you needed to say to protect your sister's interests. Dan knew what he was doing when he named you executor. He knew that you would safeguard your sister's interests, and you have proven that he was right to trust you. As for your stepsister, if he chooses not to apply for any loans, not going to college is her choice, not yours. She and your mother would have known for 3 years that they couldn't rely on robbing your sister to pay her way through college. If they didn't make alternative plans, that's on them, not you. Dan was a great man. My sister is exactly like him. I have lost my compassion so much growing up, but my sister is still the loveliest person who cares so much. Never doubt that you did the right thing by honoring Dan's wishes and protecting your sister. The fact that you're posting here tells me that you still have compassion, because you're worried that you're an a-hole because of the impact on your stepsister, but that's not your fault. I think you need to give yourself more credit. You essentially raised your sister from the age of 5 on. That she is similar to Dan in personality has a lot to do with you recognizing those traits in Dan and nurturing them in your sister. She certainly didn't see those qualities modeled by your mum and new stepdad, so I think it's pretty clear where she continued to see them as she grew. As a parent, I'm sure it gave Dan much needed peace in his remaining months to know that she would have you after he passed, even if it probably devastated him that you would be in that position at such a young age. Not the a-hole. That money was for your sister, from her father. There was no reason whatsoever for you to share it with your mum's new guy's kid. Stepsister not going to college because she didn't want to apply for loans is on her. I understand the blow of learning that she isn't getting money that you told your mum she would receive, but you did that to try and keep the peace in what sounds like a crappy home. Posted by user ThrowRA01982, titled, Am I the a-hole for not telling my family that my husband is transgender? My husband is a transgender man, therefore he cannot get me pregnant. We agreed before we even got married that we wanted to adopt, and we're a couple of years into the process right now, and are probably a couple years off being able to adopt kids. We told my parents that we want to adopt, but have never told them he is trans because we didn't think that they would accept it. They are aware of our adoption plans and have asked us if we'd seen a fertility specialist when we said we couldn't have kids, and we said we haven't seen one because we want to adopt. For our anniversary a couple days ago, my parents told us that they've prepaid for a consultation at a fertility clinic. They've put down £200 just for the initial consultation and another $120 for a semen culture. I already have a son from a previous relationship, so they know I'm not the problem. They've prepaid for it and sent us an invoice from the clinic confirming that the consultation and test have both been paid for. They've also paid for train tickets, £108, for us to get to the clinic. My husband then decided to come out to them as transgender and explain why he couldn't have a semen culture done. No semen. Edit, to be clear, he chose to tell them, and he told them himself. I didn't out him. Since telling them, all hell has broke loose. They are furious we didn't tell them sooner, said they have a right to know who they were allowing into their family, and are fuming that they've put money down for a consultation/test we won't be having. They want an apology for not telling them sooner, and a refund on the £428 that they've paid out, as they say they wouldn't have put that money down if they had known that we already knew exactly why we couldn't have kids, the old-fashioned way, as my dad put it. I said we didn't ask them to put that money down, and it was disrespectful of them to do so when they know we want to adopt, and it shouldn't matter to them whether my husband is cis or trans. However, they feel that they are owed an apology for hiding the truth and expect us to refund the £428 that they paid out, as they would not have paid it out if they knew the truth. We think we might be the a-holes because they were coming from a good place, and honestly, we probably should have told them sooner. Are we the a-holes for not telling and refunding them? Edit, I have no intention of engaging with transphobic rhetoric. Questions are fine because I believe that people should be able to ask questions, provided that those questions are not coming from a place of hate, and I will give the benefit of the doubt in most cases. And of course, I won't argue with judgments about this aspect of the question unless it is transphobic. Any transphobic comments, however, will be reported and the author will be blocked, rather than giving those viewpoints my attention, which they don't deserve. Yeah, that's just a reminder, don't be transphobic, it's not cool. In this instance, it doesn't matter if the parents were transphobic or not, they're still transphobic and they still suck, but OP and OP's partner had made it clear that they were going to adopt, and that was always going to be the plan. Some people may view making them waste their money and then coming out as an a-hole thing to do, but the parents were the a-holes from the get-go for booking that without the consent of OP and their partner, and then getting mad at them for not reimbursing that. Like, you have been hit by a train in the brain or something like that? What's going on with your stupid logic here? This is a safe, not the a-hole judgment, and more power to OP and their partner. I don't know what they're going to do from here, but I would not continue talking to those parents for a little while. That's for sure. Even if your husband was a cis male, your parents way overstepped by scheduling at the clinic an extremely personal decision that should only be made by the couple involved. They're the a-hole for two reasons: because of their reaction to your significant other being trans, and because of the crossed boundaries by scheduling a personal appointment for you. They need to mind their own business, not the a-hole. Seriously, it doesn't matter if he's trans. What if he had a traumatic accident and couldn't reproduce? It's not their business, and the why is unimportant. They were told the plan, but they got involved anyway. Why does "we are choosing to adopt" have to mean we are unable to reproduce at all? Even if they were perfectly capable of getting pregnant, if they made a decision to adopt, this is a huge overstep. My husband and I are going to adopt. We may or may not be fertile, but we aren't going to try because adoption is what we want to do. My parents are still convinced we will want a bio baby. However, the plan is, and always was, to adopt our children. Not the a-hole. This is in no way their business, and they overstepped the line when they took it upon themselves to make this appointment for an invasive medical procedure for someone else without consulting them. They stupidly gambled that money and lost. That's on them. Also, if I were you, I would have little to do with them after that blatant show of disrespect and entitlement. Posted by user Throwaway Younger Sis. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for not giving younger sister more inheritance?" I, 46 female, recently lost both of my parents in quite quick succession. They both died peacefully of natural causes and old age. I have an older brother, 47, and a younger sister, 32. Yes, I was 14 when my sister was born. She was a menopause baby, and in fact, my mother thought that most of her early pregnancy was symptoms of menopause. We were all excited to have a new baby though, especially me, as I was the youngest of all the cousins, and none of my friends had young siblings when they were growing up. My parents were always very fair with all of us when it came to money and time spent with us. They encouraged our hobbies and liked to spend time with us. Our dad died first, and everything went to our mum. When she died, everything was split between the three of us, apart from things that were stated, such as a set of golf clubs going to my brother, and jewelry specifically to my sister or to me. We decided to sell our parents' house and split the proceeds equally, as none of us wanted to live in it. Last week, my brother and I received an email from our sister. She believes that she should be given more inheritance money or the entire proceeds of the house sale. Her reasoning for this is that she is so much younger than my brother and I. She got to spend less time with my parents whilst they were alive than we did, and somehow she reasons that this is fair. My brother and I think this is absolute nonsense. Our parents were clear on splitting things equally. We both left home when we turned 18 to go to university, and were lucky that we didn't need to return home for a while to save money or anything like that. My sister lived with our parents until she was 25. My brother and I have agreed that we're not giving our sister any more of our share of the inheritance, which isn't much anyway, and the proceeds of the house will be split 3 ways as specified in both of our parents' wills. She has said we are selfish, and she is owed this because she didn't have as much time with our parents. I don't feel like I'm in the wrong here, but a few of my friends have suggested I make a token payment to keep her happy. I don't think she would be unless it was a significant portion of my inheritance or my share of the house sale. Am I the asshole for not wanting to give my sister more money just because she is younger than me? If you give her a token, that just sets the wrong precedent, and she will take a mile once you give her an inch. She is stupid, she is 25, she can look after herself. As you've said, she had much more time with the parents. It's not your fault that you guys were born way before her. I don't even know how we could frame this argument to make it you guys being the a-hole in this instance, because she's very obviously just reaching for as much as she can to take as much money as she can. There's no actual reason she needs the money. She just wants the money. That's a stupid reason to have. She's the a-hole, not you guys. Edit. Thank you very much for all your condolences. Becoming an orphan is very hard at any age, it seems. I am thinking that I will speak to my brother about talking to our sister about getting some sort of grief counseling and offer to go with her. It might be a way of finding out if there are any other issues that we don't know about, as outwardly, she is a successful professional. If there is something wrong, then we will offer our support. I love my sister very much and I don't want to end up estranged over this, especially during a time of grief. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry for your loss. Your sister's logic is stupid. You could also argue the reverse, since you knew them better since you were older, you and your brother deserve more. Also, you are following your parents' wishes in their wills. Please don't give her the money. That sets a bad precedent for the future. She might want more if you give her a little. You can't use reason with an irrational person. I love this. Email her back. Brother and I have decided since we actually knew them better, then that means that we deserve more of their money. Here's our bank details. Please transfer 2/3 of your inheritance ASAP. And since we moved out at 18 and you did at 25, you used more of Mum's wealth while she was still living. You owe us for the advance on your inheritance. Not the a-hole. Do not give your entitled sister 1 penny more than 1/3 share that your mother allotted her in her will. Your sister's reasoning is flawed, and this is just a naked cash grab on her part. Posted by user Throwaway Prego 1989, titled, Am I the a-hole for dividing our family over an ultrasound? I, 32 female, and husband Frank, 34 male, were pregnant. Everyone on both sides of our family seemed super excited about the baby because it was the first grandchild on both sides. My parents ended up being in town coincidentally the day I had scheduled an ultrasound, so I invited them to tag along and see. Cue lots of happy tears. My in-laws never outright protested, but there were jealousy noises, so I decided to invite them to my next scheduled ultrasound. Mother-in-law and father-in-law live a fair distance away, so we planned a weekend around the scan. My sister-in-law has always been a bit tricky. She's 4 years younger than Frank and is the baby of the family. No is not in her vocabulary. She has shown little to no interest in me or the pregnancy. I'm not offended by people not liking babies, NBD, but I start getting tired of her calling our unborn kid things like a crotch goblin and crotch fruit. Sister-in-law and I don't hang out or talk, by the way. She just posts sarcastic comments in the family chat. I just ignore her or let Frank handle it because life is too short for whatever this attention-seeking / jealousy / nonsense is. Fast forward to my picking my in-laws up at the airport Thursday night, and surprise, surprise, my sister-in-law is there too. We're a bit confused since she's never flown out to see us in 6 years of marriage, and she wasn't invited, but she's showing an interest, so we go along. We go to dinner, and after we're talking about the scan, and sister-in-law pipes up about how it better not be early in the morning because she's not forcing herself to miss sleep over my spawn. I laugh and tell her that the scan is scheduled for 7:15 a.m. and we'll be back in time for breakfast before she's even up. Sister-in-law loses it and starts screaming at me. Frank and I explain that there can be 3 people plus me in the room, him, father-in-law, mother-in-law. Mother-in-law says Frank should be the one in the waiting room because she's our guest. I start getting annoyed because A, it's my vagina, B, it's his baby, C, she wasn't invited. I tell sister-in-law she's not coming, and all hell breaks loose. Screaming at me, name-calling, slurs, etc. In-laws back sister-in-law up and say that if she's excluded, they are not coming to the appointment either. Giant family fight ending in Frank kicks his whole family out of the house, and we go to the ultrasound by ourselves. Baby is now 10 months, and in-laws still haven't met him. Sister-in-law hasn't spoken to us and blocked us on everything. Father-in-law and mother-in-law constantly harp on the fact that if I had just let sister-in-law come to my scan, I wouldn't have divided the family and ruined everything this way, and they won't meet our son until we apologized, and that I'm cruel for keeping him from his family. I think I should get a say in who I want at my own medical appointments, but it's been going on for over a year now, and they are still refusing to acknowledge the baby. Am I the a-hole for not letting her come? Was it worth all of this sadness and drama for a 45-minute scan? Am I the a-hole for depriving my son out of an entire half of his family because I wanted a say in my own pregnancy? I'm just gonna chime in here and say there's quite a bit more to go in this story apparently, but given what we know so far, I don't think that they're the a-hole. I think this is one of those hills you can die on to support your family, and if those in-laws aren't a family you do want in your life, I see no wrong with keeping it the way it is. Although it seems like a toxic relationship with that side, they seem devoid of reason and devoid of logic in their heads. I don't understand why after 6 years this woman has to come to see the screening and everything. Why is that necessary? And then to get upset that she can't be in the room when it's happening? Like, the entitlement of this woman just knows no bounds, does it not? I can't blame OP and the husband for their actions. I don't think they're an a-hole for doing it. I can see why that entire half side of the family thinks they're the a-hole, because they've got sticks up their asses. But I think I'd rather be OP than that side of the family, not the a-hole. Edit. Sorry guys, I'm new at this and forgot to mention the reason I think I might be the a-hole. Yes, my sister-in-law is a brat, and yes, my in-laws are exhausting, and yes, I'm probably going to need another teeth-grinding night guard when I chomp through mine like a beaver. But he's a pretty cool little guy, and is starting to learn words and recognize people, and has a great relationship with my family. I'm anxious that no apology will ever be given on either side, and now it'll be 6 years down the road, and I'll have to answer to him. Oh, why don't you have a relationship with Daddy's family? Well, Mum decided her hill to die on was a black and white video of you because she didn't want your aunt dictating her body or choices. Like, I get that I was in the right to have her not in my appointments, but should I swallow my pride enough to fix things that my little guy gets half his family back? Or stick to my guns, because the whole family is family thing doesn't hold water if everyone is toxic drama. Edit 2. Yes, as those Redditors who have had babies before guessed, the ultrasound I am referring to is the big 20-week anatomy and gender reveal ultrasound. So yes, my in-laws were saying they should all be in the room while my husband stood in the hall as we found out the baby's gender for the first time. Edit 3. Wow, this blew up. As a long-time lurker who occasionally only posts about dogs and cake decorating, this was a surprise to come back to 3 hours later. First off, thank you to everyone for the incredibly kind and supportive comments, for the awards, for the sharing, and the personal stories. I am touched so many people took time out of their day to help my first world problem. If I don't reply individually immediately, it's because I'm wrangling a 26-pound butterball turkey of a baby. To answer more questions. We're dealing with a family of Long Islanders here, so that should clear up most family dynamic questions. To the non-Americans in the post, Long Island is in New York and is characterized by loud, pushy, affluent, dramatic women. Sorry to everyone getting lumped in here. So in general, that means my sister-in-law is spoiled, rich, and the family princess. She has no mental or physical problems, has no known fertility issues, never been married, and is just all around rather difficult to deal with due to some serious entitlement issues. Sister-in-law dislikes me because her brother and I are vaguely apathetic to her. I'm not impressed by purses or horses or jewelry, so I just nod bemusedly as she shows me her newest Arabian tack or Von Cleef Swatch watch. I collect cake pans, so she finds my lack of social standing beneath her, and that my husband is an embarrassment since he went into something so vulgar and pedestrian as cryptocurrency. Since we don't need the family money, we try to stay out of family drama as much as possible since we embarrass her. Who knew buying my jeans at Target was such an unpardonable offense? We tried to just keep out of it, so the ensuing fight at our house was one for the ages. 30 years of family drama got brought up. Missing my husband's debate championship for sister-in-law's writing schedule. Her deliberately trying to poison husband to test his shellfish allergy. father-in-law, mother-in-law, always allowing sister-in-law to choose first at activities, vacations, theater tickets, etc. Frank seems to have found it heartbreaking, if not cathartic, to finally let it all out. Now that everyone has clearly convinced me to wash my hands of my lingering guilt, I shall take all of this crap off and follow Frank's lead. The world is stressful enough without what these lovely people add to it. I won't stop them if they choose to form a relationship with the baby, but it'll be on my husband's terms. You were right in that I felt like I had to fix it because I felt I broke it, when I was really only the tipping point it fell off from. To the super kind-hearted people saying I can't be this innocuous and must be leaving something out, holy hell, I wish I was. This would be far more palatable for me if I could pinpoint doing something that I could point to be like, that tracks, I guess I deserve that. I wish I was more interesting or dramatic, but I am incredibly boring. I'm basically Anne from Arrested Development personality-wise. White, boring-ass toast. I'm going to put this beeb to bed, drink a big old glass of red wine, and listen to Don't Rock the Boat because of all the wonderful tipsy boat analogies. Thanks again, everyone, and cheers from my little family to yours. Posted by user DiwaPill612. Titled, Am I the a-hole for shouting at a young mum and calling her a stupid tramp? Yesterday, I, 26 male, and my partner, 22 female, were driving to my parents' house for lunch. As I was driving down the main road of the village we live in, a little girl, maybe 4-ish, suddenly shot off across the road in front of the car. I absolutely slammed down the brakes. The car lurched and squealed. My partner, who was speaking, choked as the seatbelt tightened around her, and it was all very sudden and frightening. I pounded my fist on the horn at the girl and rolled down the window at the visibly terrified mother, who ran out to pull her back. I was really furious and started properly shouting at her. Don't remember exactly what was said, but something like, "What's your child, you fudging stupid tramp?" We rolled the window back up and carried on, but my partner was annoyed at me. She said I really shouldn't have shouted and sworn at the mother, and that she was very young. She looked like very early 20s, and must be really stressed right now. I said that she would have been a hell of a lot more stressed if her daughter had been killed because she couldn't look after her properly. It blew up into quite an argument with her defending the mum, saying that the horn would have scared her enough and that it was really unnecessary for me to scream at her like that. I admit that I was slightly out of control with anger, but considering I very nearly killed a child because of her mother's negligence, and that shouting at her was not only justified because of the situation, but useful to startle her into keeping better hold of her daughter in the future. Am I the a-hole? I just did an entire segment where I defended OP for what they're doing, and I do believe that some people need to change their habits when they're in a life or death situation. Perhaps OP was in the wrong for yelling at the mother in this situation, but if it was me in the same situation, I'd be equally freaked out as the OP would. I would probably start shaking uncontrollably and be like, Jesus, I almost hit a kid. Do I yell? Do I cry? What do I do? I empathize with where the OP is coming from. I don't think that yelling is the right thing to do. So, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Do you really think that's an acceptable response? I understand your frustration, but to shout and swear at a mother and child is vile. Honestly, I've looked after small children near roads before, and sometimes even if you're holding their hand, they can pull out suddenly, sometimes, and it's the scariest thing. The woman really didn't need OP shouting at them on top of this. The fact he called her a stupid tramp is completely horrible, and I don't think can be justified in any situation. I was walking my nephew across a road, and he went to bolt out in front of a bus. It's the one and only time as an adult I've ever been forceful with a child. I ended up smacking the top of his hand to get him to stop because he was millimeters from getting killed. It is so damn easy for a kid to escape and just run. Kids do it. You're the a-hole. No one can control children 24/7, and things like that happen. It's not the mum's fault that kid did it, and yelling and cursing at her doesn't help the issue and only makes the situation worse. People crap on parents that have their kids on leashes, but when they're too young for reason, it really helps prevent things like this. Personally, I think he shouldn't have shouted and cursed, but in the situation, I probably would have done the same out of shock and anger. He almost killed a child through no fault of his own. And you would be the a-hole. You don't even know for sure that child was young. This guy is guessing at their ages and has no idea what was going on before the kid ran out into the road. For all you know, the kid could have been running after a ball they were playing with. You're the a-hole, because you're the type of person who thinks it's ever okay to call a woman a stupid tramp, much less in front of her child. It's even worse that you think being out of control with anger justifies your behavior. That's a major red flag. Do better. Posted by user Sister Bought Car. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she's an idiot for buying a car that she can't afford? My sister, 26, has no concept of money. She has expensive taste and has resulted in her having no money, wasting all her savings, and having to move in with me, 36 male, as our parents are sick of telling her to save money and she doesn't. They basically don't want to bail her out anymore. I only agreed to take her on the condition that she pays $200 a month towards household expenses. I made it that low so she can save more money from her job. She also had to help out with chores and stuff. She was elated at this proposal. I also, luckily, own my home outright, so I don't see the point of charging her rent. The first few months were fine. She actually saved her paychecks. She also has a driving license and started talking about buying her first car. I told her she could save up a fair bit and buy a used car so she doesn't waste all her money on a brand new car she's paying off for years. I showed her some sites to look at which were verified car dealers and also calculated how much deposit she could put down and how much she would be paying monthly and for insurance. She seemed to appreciate my input, and she told me she was going to save for maybe a year to have a decent deposit. She told me recently that she was going to go and look at a car. This quickly changed to her telling me she had already bought a car when I was out one day. She was very vague about the details, and I wanted to trust she made good judgment, so I just asked her questions about it. She told me it cost her $25. I thought she meant she had a $2,500 deposit down, and told her that was awesome. She seemed really weird, and then told me the car itself was actually $25,000. I asked her how the hell she could afford a deposit for a car that much, and she told me she got a loan. I told her she was an idiot. She showed me the loan, and the interest rate is sky high, and the monthly costs on the car are ridiculous. I said to her, why the hell would you get a loan and buy a car that's going to ruin you financially? She just shrugged her shoulders and said she didn't want a cheap car. I made her realize how stupid she'd been, and she started crying, but I had no sympathy for her. I can easily afford to help her out with her debt, but I said, you made this mess, you fix it. I am done trying to help you. She has gone to our parents where she told them a lie. I told them the truth, and they ended up being on my side. My sister says I am an a-hole as I am refusing to help my baby sister out, and that she made a genuine mistake. However, she keeps doing this, and she is 26. She needs to learn to control her money. I love her, but it's also her own mess. Am I the a-hole? Edit, I'm still going to let her live with me for a low cost, but that's all I'll do. No more advice to help her out or anything. Just a quick little one here. If the person being an a-hole is saying that you're the a-hole for not enabling them, that pretty quickly shows you who the a-hole in this situation is. And that's just an obvious gaslighting technique from her being like, you're the problem, OP. You're not pulling me out of this quicksand. I'm gonna drown if you don't get me out of this quicksand I just jumped into. This is your fault. She's 26. She's lived life long enough and watched enough shows where people are stupid with credit cards and they're stupid with money. She should know this lesson by now, and she does know better. She chooses not to do better. OP, you are not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. My sibling did something very similar, bigger price tag, and it ended in disaster. Your sister is an adult. She was offered advice and she decided she knew better. It wasn't an honest mistake. She sounds like the kind of person who needs the newest of everything because it's shiny. She needs to take responsibility and sort it out. If you always bail her out, how will she learn? That is exactly her. Yeah, I have one of those siblings. I'm sorry she's a brat to you. There's always a desire to help because they're family, but where do you draw the line? She's not your responsibility, and that's hard to remember sometimes. I don't think she realizes I'll probably end up bailing her out anyway, because that $200 is going to go towards that fudging car and loan. As hard as it is, stick to your guns. If you do that, you'll feed into the cycle and she'll do it again in other ways. She needs to learn to budget, and if she can't afford it, she either needs a better job or to sell it and cut her losses. You won't be doing her any favors by helping her in the long run. Posted by user Coffee in Silence Please. Titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving the house to clear my head because my girlfriend called me an ableist? Here goes. English is like my third language, so be warned. My girlfriend of 10 years is a deaf and mute person. I knew sign language from before, so we hit it off the instant that we met. Apart from some very valid things, she doesn't like if someone touches her from behind, etc., I never had to tiptoe around her disability. She hates it when people pity her or thinks differently. When things were getting serious, I mentioned that I don't want kids in the future ever because I don't think it's right for children to suffer in this world for something that's not their fault. Maybe it's my fault for being ambiguous, but what I meant to say in a gentle way was that since there is a high chance that our biological children will inherit her disability, not guessing, she told me. But apparently what she understood was that I was child-free and the world is too much of a mess, global warming and such, to bring children into. She was okay with it, and we went further into our relationship. This misunderstanding came to light when we were having a conversation last week, and thus began the worst fight in our relationship. She asked me whether I would want biological children if I had been with someone without a disability. I admitted, probably, yeah. She yelled at me about how hurt she was that I would treat her differently when I know how much she hated it. I apologized and told her I was trying to be vague so that I don't use any hurtful words. I really didn't think the entire thing could be misinterpreted. I apologized and told her I didn't mean to make her think I was child-free, etc. After that, she started saying subtle things like, when we have kids, / she can't wait to do XYZ with her kids. At first, I thought she was talking about adoption, maybe, because I admitted that I wasn't child-free. But it soon became clear that she wanted biological children. So I sat her down and told her that though I am sorry for how I said it, my decision to not have biological children with her still stands, and I would have done the same thing with anyone with any genetic condition or mental illness. She blew her lid off and accused me of being an ableist because I am seeing any disabled child as a burden, so that must mean I see her as a burden too. I tried to explain that while I don't think any less of her for having a disability, I don't think that it's okay to bring a child into the world that there is a very, very, very high chance of the baby having a disability. She doesn't think that both can be mutually exclusive. She kept calling me an ableist, and when I felt we were going in circles, I went out to go for a walk and clear my head. So, am I the a-hole here? It's very clear that the relationship is not going to go the way that you intended, and your misstep of words was taken very much the wrong way. It feels like you haven't put yourself in her shoes, saying, yeah, I'd want kids, but I don't want more people like you in this world at my own hand, I wouldn't be the one to do it. That is very, very rude to say to someone and admit to them. And the fact this wasn't brought up earlier, I guess it would have been slightly inappropriate maybe to bring it up earlier, but it's good that it's coming out now because you guys can go your separate ways from here and stop hurting each other. I don't personally feel like there's any coming back from this one. That was a huge a-hole move to tell her, but it's better to just end things now than to continue hurting her. That's for sure. You're the a-hole here. You're the a-hole. Holy crap. I don't want kids if they could turn out like you. I can understand how that would be the message received, but my husband and I also decided to not have children due to genetics. It is completely understandable to not want your child to inherit major biological defects. You don't want to bring someone into this world that would suffer. Denying that these are defects just shows that you are not willing to face the truth, and that is that disabilities are biological defects. That doesn't mean the person isn't loved, wanted, and has a value as a human being. It just means that you don't want to make your own children suffer. I think the difference in this case is that the party with the genes in question was involved in the decision-making. It's one thing to say, my suffering is so great that I don't want anyone I bring into the world to suffer this way. It's a different thing to say, your suffering is so great that I don't want anyone else to suffer that way. While the partner says, I love my life and I would be happy to raise kids like me. My dad and 4 of my cousins are hemophiliacs. I'm a carrier, and the way I've seen them suffer has helped me decide to not have children. They live full and happy lives, but it would break my heart to see my child go through that. I think the point the above commenter is making is that it is fine and valid to think this way about your own disability. However, it is not the case with OP. OP isn't the one with a disability here. He's basically just told his partner that she shouldn't breed, which is pretty terrible. Posted by user FishingNervous9010, titled, Am I the a-hole for calling my girlfriend sexist for insulting that the traditionally female way of doing something is inherently better than the traditionally male way, and that I need to do it the traditionally female way? My girlfriend of a year, Anna, and I are basically testing out living together. Overall, things are pretty great, but as we've gotten more comfortable and more serious with each other, we have one issue that has become a huge sticking point, and after a major disagreement over it, and lots of words on both sides, I'm curious who was the a-hole in the argument. So I have 3 brothers, and when we were at home, it was always normal that if we got heated or frustrated with each other, we'd let off steam and not have to bury our aggression. Same with our parents. It's not like we were constantly screaming at each other, just that raising our voices wasn't a big deal, and it wasn't something to get punished over. They figured that with 4 boys it was normal we'd be loud and argumentative sometimes. Obviously, we knew not to raise our voices at school or at our jobs when we were old enough. But at our home base, it was okay to be guys and not have to stifle ourselves. I think it's pretty normal and traditional and expected that as a guy, it's not wrong to sometimes raise your voice when you're frustrated. Anna has 2 sisters and was raised by just her mum in a very use-your-words kind of family. Yelling was not only not okay, it was punished. The girls were not allowed to yell at each other, or really to argue back and forth at all. Their mum taught them that when you get frustrated or upset, you need to stop and cool off and talk it out calmly. Lots of, when you do X, I feel Y. I guess it's the traditionally female way of handling arguments. Anna's wasn't really raised around any men, so basically she interprets any time a man even slightly raises his voice to be yelling. Now that we're living together, she is constantly telling me to stop yelling. We've gotten into a bunch of arguments where she insists I'm yelling at her and starts to cry over basically nothing, no matter how many times I tell her that I just have a deep voice and I'm not yelling. I can't help being loud sometimes. Now she's decided that every time I yell, she's just going to leave the room until I cool off, and can talk things out like an adult. We got into a raised voices back and forth last night, on both sides, when she told me that yelling when you're frustrated is wrong, the traditionally male way, and talking things out is right, the traditionally female way, and everyone knows that. I kept telling her it's a difference of opinion and neither is better or worse, just different. She kept pushing me about it, and finally I snapped and told her that insisting that the female way of doing something is better than the male way is sexist, and she's a sexist if she thinks that and tries to force me to handle disagreements that way. She says I'm out of line and to call her a sexist just because she's sick of being yelled at, but I'm sick of being told that the way I do things is wrong just because I'm a man and because I have a deep voice. Who is the a-hole here? I think you are, dude. I feel like you were going about it the wrong way. She's not a guy. Why are you trying to handle things the traditionally male way if you agree that you did it between your brothers and you didn't have a sister there to try it on? And the fact that your way of going about it isn't working with her, and you guys aren't getting these arguments solved because you're trying to go about it your way. It's not really working, is it? I think you're wrong in this one, OP, and you should realize that and change yourself. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole for turning this into a gender issue. I, female, grew up in a yell-it-out household, and my husband grew up in a conflict-avoidant household. So I had to learn not to raise my voice during disagreements, and he had to learn to get better about speaking up when he was upset about things. If you don't want her making right versus wrong assumptions, you need to drop the boys will be boys justifications and figure out a way of handling arguments that works for both of you as individuals. Exactly. In the long run, learning to talk about your feelings in a constructive way without raising your voice will be a much healthier approach to conflict. Yelling and raising your voice clearly isn't working, so why not try things her way? And for God's sake, drop the sexist BS, because I promise you there's not a whole lot of people out there who are going to put up with a partner who holds such sexist views, and reacts to conflict the way that you do. Forgot to mention, you're the a-hole, my dude. Yes, I agree. I don't understand how it devolved to male versus female, because the whole time I was reading the description of the argument styles, I was thinking, girlfriend is just using conflict resolution tools. My partner and I have been doing couples counseling for a while, and we have learned that when one person yells and the other person is overwhelmed and wants to walk away, just let them, regardless of gender. If one person doesn't want to be yelled at and doesn't want to yell, they don't have to. You can't force her to just accept you yelling at her. Even if you disagree about the definition of yelling, if she wants to wait to talk about it, you have to accept that boundary. Period. You're the a-hole. Posted by user MK6804. Titled, Am I the a-hole? Friend keeps bringing his girlfriend every time we have a get-together, so we stopped inviting him. First time poster, throwaway and fake names warning. Posting as a group. Background info. Our friend group is made up of 6 people. Me, male 34, A, J, K, E, and V. Now, we met each other during a work event and connected instantly, and each of us has a significant other. Now, with V, he has been with his girlfriend for 3 years, and we have been friends since uni. And ever since then, we have a guys' night once every 3 months, so that 4 times a year, and every time we get together, V keeps bringing his girlfriend, and it just became awkward. She would follow him everywhere. She even tried to follow him into the men's toilet. We are unable to go to restaurants because she keeps causing drama. An example of this is when V left his phone on a table at a restaurant. The waiter tapped V on the shoulder and returned the phone. V thanked her. His girlfriend then poured water on a waiter and accused her of hitting on V. The manager banned her. That is just one of the times she acted out. Me, M, A, J, and K had enough. We held an intervention, asked him why he keeps bringing her, and that we had enough. He wasn't able to give us a proper answer. Said that she keeps inviting herself to these events. Soon she was invited into our group chats and our annual camping trip. Now, because Melbourne is in lockdown, of course, we had a few online movie sessions, and she would show up and complain about the choice of movie. Now we had enough. Every time she shows up, there's an issue. The choice of movie or the type of food served, even the weather, the glorious Melbourne weather, it can do no wrong compared to sunny Queensland, that's for sure. Now, me, M, A, J, and K told V to grow a pair and tell her enough is enough. He refused to do so, said this is him proving his love for her. So me, M, A, J, and K decided that until he had a proper sit down and talk things through with her, we would not invite him to any of our events. He and his girlfriend called us a-holes, while our significant other also agreed with them. Finally, someone that writes Aussie. Edit. Judging by how many people are asking about why we only meet 4 times a year, I just need to clarify that we see each other a lot due to working together at the same office. We only meet 4 times for guys' night, which is supposed to be just us 6, not our girlfriends or other co-workers. Just needed to clarify that, and huge thanks to everyone who rewarded this post. Look, OP, Cobber, Melbourneite. Huge problem you got there. Man's whipped, ball and chain is following him around everywhere. Need to cut that ball and chain loose, that's for sure. Keep her away from the lads' nights out 4 times a year. Absolutely not acceptable. That's it, she's shown that she cannot behave herself on these nights out. You need to get the boys round, sort them out, tell them, hey, you're not invited if you're bringing her along. You need to come, and she doesn't, and that's that. Or else you're not part of the boys anymore. That's my advice. Take it with a grain of salt, of course. I am not the be-all, end-all, but you're not the a-hole for what you've done. Not the a-hole. I mean, you guys are entitled to a guy's night without being pestered by this girlfriend. If the dude won't stop bringing her because she is a super jealous type and or controlling, you are well within your rights to say, you're out until you figure this out. At the point where she poured water on the poor waiter, this isn't even a thing about a guy's night out anymore. That's just a terrible person who I would want nothing to do with. Yeah, at first I thought she just had some issues. For example, I had a ton. I'm scared of being alone in public, relatable, doing simple tasks on my own, stuff like that, that I'm trying to fix and I need my boyfriend around a lot. But when I got there, I noticed she was just being a jerk and probably had some jealousy issues. She's a boat rocker and he is enabling her. I say enable her because he does, but she's extremely abusive and controlling. OP, your friend needs help because he can't see that proving his love for her is a classic abuser strategy to demand of their victims. Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft is valid for all genders, and the author says so too. It's available in all formats and is even floating around as a free PDF. The book helped me see the truth about my now ex-husband. Also, Just No Significant Other is a great sub. I was hoping I'd see someone pointing out the abuse in the comments already. I think the best method would be to tell him that he alone is invited, and if he insists on bringing her, neither is invited. But that you're there for him whenever, and let him know that having to prove his love is unhealthy and unsustainable. When exactly has she proven her love to him? Was that when she was showing she'd assault anyone that dares to look at him, pouring water on a server, or when she isolated him from all of his friends? Posted by user Erig Malg, titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to be in my father's wedding even though I cheated too? A story as old as time. My, female 27, father, 50, cheated on my mother for 5 years with a younger woman, currently 32, and he left my mother when the mistress got pregnant. It tore our family apart. I resent my father because my mother actually loved him and she is still dealing with this. Even 1 year after he left her. I stayed on okay terms with him because I was the one to pick up and drop off my younger brother at his place. Last week when I picked up my brother, my father had big news. He proposed to his girlfriend and wanted me as his best woman. It made me kinda mad, not gonna lie, but I kept calm and told him no. He said that what happened between him and his mom was none of our business, and that I should respect his new relationship. I said I respect it, but that doesn't mean I condone it. Obviously, I would never hound him randomly about it, but I don't approve of it, and I don't like her. She knew the whole time my mum and we existed. Well, my dad was having none of it, and told me to get off my high horse because I had cheated too and I had no right. And I guess, when I was 17, I was with this boy for 3 months. I went to a party and got crap-faced and made out with a classmate for a total of 10 minutes. I felt so bad that I called my boyfriend crying and we talked it out. We broke up, I told my dad, and in 10 years I never did something like that again. I have been with my partner for 5 years. I told him he could not equate it at all. He called me a hypocrite, and that he was glad to know who I am. Driving home, I felt like I was a bit harsh. He's still my father, and he's not a bad father. I just don't want to be in his wedding. I would still go, but am I the a-hole? Personally, I can't fault you for that, 17, getting drunk as hell. A lot of people make those mistakes. You talked it out with him, and you guys broke up amicably. That was the best way to go about it, and it was very respectful. But he was stringing his wife along for 5 years with someone much younger that knew that you guys existed. You're right, it doesn't track. They're not the same things. He's just pulling at straws to excuse his behavior and drag you down with him. I would not want to be the best man at that wedding either if I was you. And personally, I don't even know if I'd want to go to that wedding. Your dad has a major hole in his brain calling you a hypocrite. I hope he learns his lesson, but as life does go, karma doesn't always find its way back to these kinds of people. Regardless, not the a-hole. You kissed another guy once when you were still a kid. Your dad hid the fact that he had been screwing another woman, did it for 5 years, and knocked her up. The situations aren't even comparable. Your dad is trying to manipulate you by saying you cheated too. The situations are not the same. He's the a-hole. The goal to even try to guilt her. The audacity. Or maybe he thought his marriage of over 15 years with 2 kids involved was the same as a teenage relationship. Not the a-hole, your father is though. He's trying to get OP to join the wedding party as a way to legitimize and rationalize his behavior. If she joins, it's sending a public message that his betrayal was okay. His daughter was in the wedding party, they must have gotten over it. This is all about public appearances and making himself look good. It's not about mending relationships or bringing the 2 families together. If he was trying to fix things with OP, he wouldn't have jumped to this whataboutism nonsense at her first objection. His bullcrap arguments and false equivalences with OP is proof that he's trying to paper over the past and reframe his past behavior as not hurtful or destructive. And OP, don't let him do it. Posted by user Accomplished Guide 12, titled, Am I the a-hole for letting my daughter repurpose a gift I did not like or want? Several years ago, I had a miscarriage. I do not know how, but my sister-in-law found out about this fairly recently, and in a misguided attempt to be supportive, she recently sent me a framed poem about babies in heaven decorated with angels. It was pretty large, very tacky, and very unwanted. Not only am I not actively grieving the loss of pregnancy, we are not religious and she knows that. Also, it's just not my style and I don't want it on my wall. Anyways, my oldest daughter is really creative and wanted to use the print itself in one of her collages. It turned out really beautiful. She incorporated the best parts of the poem and images with other pieces from elsewhere. I know this might sound cheesy, but it actually took me from being reminded of a really painful part of my life to being so grateful for the wonderfully creative kids I have. My husband got the final product framed, and it is hanging in our home. Sister-in-law saw this last night while she was FaceTiming with my husband, and she got really upset. Husband told her that while we appreciate the gesture, it wasn't really appropriate, and he thought that our daughter reusing parts of the gift was better than us throwing it out. I know this is personal for sister-in-law, as she is very religious and has struggled with infertility, but we are not close, and I don't appreciate the random angel baby poem in the mail years after I lost my last pregnancy. It's weird and invasive to me. I don't feel bad about letting my daughter cut the poem up, but I need to say something to sister-in-law to keep the peace. Am I the a-hole? I can't blame you for doing that. I can see why she thinks it's a good gesture in this one here, but it wasn't asked for, and that was her gift to you. You are under no obligation to keep it in the original packaging that it is in and not to do with it as you please. She's giving up those rights to it, and you have more than enough rights as the woman who was going through that process to do with it as you please. I personally don't know what you would say to her to keep the peace, because she obviously feels very strongly about that poem, and sometimes there is no right answer in something like this because she probably doesn't want to hear your excuses as she would frame them. I would hope she's a logical person and she can understand where you're coming from, but not everyone works that way. I think not the a-hole. I wouldn't keep a religious miscarriage poem. It's a bit weird and uncomfortable. I'm glad your daughter turned it into something beautiful for you. I agree. It came with a note from her saying that it brought her a lot of comfort and she hoped it would do the same for me. I really do appreciate the sentiment, but if she took a single second to think about whether or not that was a good gift for me, she wouldn't have sent it. This makes me lean towards a soft "you're the a-hole" to your husband. Emotions make us do weird things sometimes, and we tend to think that our emotional reactions to an event are the same as other people's. Your sister-in-law made an ill-judged attempt to share an emotional connection with you. Gifts are allowed to be used however you want, but gifts should also be received graciously. Chastising the giver isn't appropriate in this situation. If there's a way that you can share with sister-in-law that you really love having it incorporated into a beautiful work by your daughter, I think you should. Kindness and higher ground goes a long way. There's no need to hurt her over a misjudged gift. I don't know. She has a history of pushing religion on others. She's a born-again Christian, and nobody in her family is religious. So this is a common theme between her and my husband. I think it's fair for him to set boundaries with her. Like I said, I do appreciate the sentiment, but I didn't tell her about it for a reason. We are not close, and her idea of comforting me does not bring me comfort. I think I understand you. It wasn't really a gift. It was a way for your sister-in-law to force her point of view into an experience she wasn't part of, and now you are in the position to have to engage with her in a more intimate way than you feel comfortable with. You also might find it more manipulative than supportive because of her religious motives and proselytizing. But the optics of it all makes it seem like you are heartless jerks who let their kid vandalize her gift that brought her such comfort. I'd offer this advice. Apologize. You and your husband should sincerely apologize. Then, you need to tell her that you don't ever want to have another experience like this, and since you would see the world very differently, you would like to limit your contact to family events. You really seem to find this woman a chore. Graciously quit the job. She didn't vandalize it, she used it to create a more meaningful piece. It's like getting a dress that's more moo-moo style and cutting it into more of a fashionable wearable piece, in my opinion. It's not destroyed, just changed to suit the user. Posted by user Throwaway 11976051. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not siding with my wife after she took my daughter's diary? Me, male 38, got married to my wife Nora, 31, 5 months ago. My daughter Madison, female 12, from my previous marriage, is currently living with me and my wife. My daughter is not on good terms with my wife. There is constant tension between the two, even though my daughter has been very respectful and keeps to herself. My daughter Madison has a diary where she expresses her thoughts and feelings, and writes about what bothers her without having to bother anyone with listening. It's her choice to do that, and I respect her wanting her own space. Last week, while I was at work, Madison called me and she was crying. She told me that her stepmom took her diary and read through it and refused to give it back. She said she wanted me to come home immediately. I got home to find Nora and Madison having a screaming match. I asked what was going on, and Madison told me that her stepmom snooped around in her room, took her diary, and refused to give it back. Nora denied and said that she had no idea what my daughter was talking about. I asked my daughter to confirm it, but she didn't. She just kept saying her stepmom took it and must have hid it because it was gone that morning. Nora said she didn't do it. I got stuck. I didn't know what to do. My daughter told me to look for it. I started looking, thinking she might have forgotten where it was, and I was surprised to find it in our bedroom. I gave Madison her diary back and lied about where I found it. I secretly confronted Nora about it, but she broke down and said that I was supposed to comfort and support her because she read the awful stuff Madison said about her in her diary. I told her she was in the wrong for taking Madison's diary in the first place and causing an issue. She got mad at me and went on about how she was treated and how I was supposed to defend her from this much hate and resentment. I walked out of the bedroom. Nora stayed there all day and refused to eat dinner. I brought her dinner upstairs, but she refused to take it. I bought Madison a small box to keep her important stuff in so that she won't lose them. Madison and Nora don't even talk to each other, and I don't know if I handled this situation properly. My wife is so ticked at me and disappointed that she's hurting, and I didn't do anything to make it right. Reality check, Nora. That's what you get for looking through people's diaries. It's simply unacceptable in this day and age. Ever. Not in the history of mankind has that been okay to go read through someone's diary. And if you do go reading through their diary, don't be upset that you find things that you wouldn't like to see. People have to let thoughts out of their head, and that's completely on you for delving and opening Pandora's box. Opie, it's not your fault that she was facing all this hate and resentment. She chose to do it to herself. You handled the situation well. You didn't show any blatant favoritism. You played a humble middle ground in this, and Nora should be upset because she did wrong. She's the a-hole in the situation. I feel bad for Madison because this has destroyed the family dynamic for a little while, and I hope that you guys can bring things back together. OP, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole for the question posed, but I do think you're the a-hole for essentially gaslighting Madison by lying about where you found the diary and then getting her a box so she doesn't lose things. Madison correctly believed your wife had stolen from her, which she had, and you chose to invalidate this reality, presumably to try to not cause even more damage to their fractured relationship. This wasn't for Madison's sake, since she clearly already dislikes and distrusts Nora. Rightfully so, it would seem. This was so that you could keep both women you love in your life and on good terms, rather than tell Madison the truth that she was right and have to deal with further fallout. Making your daughter think she was wrong that she had been stolen from and that she had wrongfully accused Nora unfairly is not good parenting. I would have to think long and hard if I wanted to stay married to someone who treats my 12-year-old in such a way as to warrant my child to write about her negatively in that diary, only to have my wife steal it, lie to my daughter, lie to me, and then expect sympathy for their abominable behavior, going so far as to say that you should side with her over your own child. Lol? No, wait. I wouldn't think long and hard. I would protect my child and divorce that wife immediately. Smiley face, love heart, facepalm. Can't love this comment enough. The wife makes my skin crawl, and this isn't a one-off occurrence. Back your daughter. Be honest with her about where you found it right now. Your wife needs therapy and a divorce. I'd give her a box with a lock and tell the wife she needs to apologize and then do some therapy. I never kept a diary because my brothers were intrusive jerks, mostly the older one, but at least I knew my parents would never have messed with my stuff. You're the a-hole. Not for siding with your wife, she was 100% in the wrong, but for this, which was the lie about the diary. You lied to Madison, thus making out that she was in the wrong for accusing Nora, and so Nora will not apologize to her for what she did, and Madison will never know for certain that your wife completely broke her trust and now knows her inner thoughts. You let your daughter down so fudging much. She deserves the truth, an apology from each of you, and you need to make it very clear to Nora that this kind of crap will not stand, that she needs to respect your daughter, and that you will put your daughter's well-being first. I'll take it back. This is a you're the a-hole judgment, or everyone sucks here except Madison. I was wrong about my interpretation of OP's actions. I apologize. Posted by user, I called my wife sexy. Titled, Am I the a-hole for saying my wife is fudgin' sexy? Throwaway for personal reasons. My wife is 5 months pregnant. Recently, she has been feeling a little bit insecure about her body due to the pregnancy. I always try to compliment her to raise her self-esteem and try to remind her that she is an absolute stunner. My mum is staying with us for a couple weeks. My mum, usually very sweet towards my wife, has been awkwardly very critical of my wife. We have a pool in our backyard, and my wife was lounging in a bikini, and my mum insisted that she cover up because she was being shameful. Also, my wife still works out regularly, completely her choice, not mine. And my mum started talking down to my wife. My mum told my wife some very hurtful things when she was working out. After those 2 incidents, I asked my mum to stop being completely unreasonable because she was making my wife feel incredibly guilty over nothing. My wife and I were planning on going for a nice day out while my mum was meant to be away. My wife hasn't really left the house since the pandemic hit and started working from home, so she wanted to get dressed up. She came out wearing a semi-tight dress, which she looked great in. She was a little nervous coming down the steps though. Her bump was visible and my mum was glaring at her. So naturally, I told her that she was very fudgin' sexy. My mum first got mad at my wife's outfit, claiming that she wasn't being modest enough for a pregnant lady. Then, as we were driving my mum to my aunt's house, she turned her anger onto me for 2 reasons: enabling my wife's behavior and treating my wife like a random girl instead of my wife. I said she was sexy rather than she was beautiful or gorgeous or pretty, etc. To be fair, I thought my mum was joking at first about the whole not treating my wife as my wife, but she wasn't, and left the car mad at the both of us. Me, mostly. My wife isn't upset that I called her sexy at all, but my wife ended up making my mum her favorite dish for dinner as an apology dish. I think she expected me to do the same, but I didn't want to. I wish she hadn't as well. My mum is mad at me for not apologizing to her for being inappropriate, and apparently my aunt is also mad at me for the same reasons. Am I the a-hole? What the hell? What's your mum's problem? She never had a fun husband before? Why is she hating on her for having a baby bump? She's been pregnant too. Since when did lounging around in a bikini in your own house become shameful? Who are you showing off for? What's your problem, lady? If anyone has a problem, your mum has some mental problems going on there. I see no reason to back down from those comments. I would absolutely do the same for my wife because she deserves the world. In the future, if I ever get one, that is. Not the a-hole. Edit. Thank you for all your feedback. My mum has only truly made comments twice about my wife's choices during her pregnancy, and I shut those comments down completely, though I understand where the confusion may have come from. My mum is staying with my aunt now. You're not the a-hole for calling your wife sexy, but you are the a-hole for letting your mum abuse your wife while she's fudging pregnant. Your wife is a saint for continuing to put up with your mother's bullcrap, in her own home no less. You will remain the a-hole until you put your foot down and tell your mother she's got to go. That's completely valid. I've told my mum to stop and that she's making my wife feel bad over nothing, but maybe I should take the extra step and make her go live with her sister for the duration of time she has to be away from her house. Shape up or ship out. Edit, that's directed at the mum. Hell nah. Tell her she's fudgin' sexy even more, mate. She needs that kind of support way more than your mum needs an apology. Ain't the a-hole, you're a good husband. Posted by user, name change throwaway O. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not changing my name? So this just happened and I'm not sure how to feel. My ex and I divorced 12 years ago. We have 2 children and share custody. We have a great co-parenting relationship and have had 0 issues with anything since our divorce. My ex met his now wife 5 years ago, and we get along good as well. She's a good stepmom to my children, and she treats them like they are her own. I have remained single by choice because I spent most of my time at work or with my children. I date occasionally, but I'm not looking for anything serious. My ex and his wife were married 2 weeks ago, and I'm very happy for the both of them. I think it's great that they finally made it official and they found happiness with each other. Tonight, my ex's wife texted me the following. She says, "So I think now that me and ex are married, you should change your name. After all, there can only be one Mrs. X's last name. Smiley emoji." So I say, "Hi, wife's name. I hope you're both doing well. I'm a little confused as to why I would need to change my name." "Well, because we are married now and I'm his wife. I should be the only one with his last name. X and I have not been married for over 12 years. The reason I did not change my name is due to all the professional certifications and licenses. X and I agreed when we got divorced that it was too much of a hassle to change everything, and I would keep my last name the same to avoid the stress and headache of having to do that." She says, "Well, that changes now. You will change your name immediately." I didn't respond to the last text she sent, and after about 10 minutes, my ex called me and demanded to know why I upset her. I sent him screenshots of the texts and my replies and told him that this entire conversation is ridiculous and immature. He told me that maybe I should just change my name so he doesn't have to deal with the drama. I told him I refuse. I said again that we agreed during the divorce I wouldn't change my name, and even if I wanted to, most of the state's offices and courts are closed where I live, and it would be near impossible to do. I told my ex that we haven't been married for 12 years, I have zero romantic feelings for him, and that the only reason I have maintained a relationship with him is because of our children. I told him that they are our priority, and we need to all get along to raise them as good co-parents. I told him that changing my name won't make me any less my kid's mother or his ex-wife, and that unfortunately, new wife needs to deal with it. He told me I was making his life difficult and wishes I would reconsider. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to change my name? No, not at all. I don't think this wife understands the complexities of changing the name, or is just denying the reality of it all because she wants her way. If I were you, I would make her sit on it and rotate if I were you, OP. She cannot and will not have her way, screw her, and screw your ex-husband for, enabling this behavior. He should have shut this down ages ago. Not the a-hole. Update, thank you all for the overwhelming support. It truly means a lot. I thought maybe I was being unreasonable, but I see now that this is very common. My children and I all have the same last name, and that is again a reason I don't want to change it. While our oldest no longer lives at home, he's in the army, my youngest and I make frequent trips overseas to visit him whenever possible, so having the same name on our passports is easier. I also looked into the time and cost to do the name change last night. I would have to have a formal court hearing with a judge and have a signed and sealed decree to change it at a DMV and Social Security. The courts here are closed due to the obvious reasons and are only hearing emergent matters, so my name change would be delayed. Not to mention the cost of this will be in the thousands, and that includes the reprinting of all my degrees and certifications, new office letterheads, business cards, updating to the state list for my profession and my malpractice insurance. This will not be an easy process. I think I'm going to address this with my ex-husband in a few weeks when all parties have had a chance to calm down and reflect a little. I think that there may be some underlying issue at play. And for those who asked, the reason for the divorce was infidelity on his part. I was working 2 jobs and putting myself through school, and he felt ignored. So, he decided to cheat, and I decided to get rid of 250 pounds of dead weight. Smiley face. Posted by user AmiTheA 13, titled, "Am I the a-hole for distancing myself from my son after I found out he's gay? Before you judge, please read everything. I kept it short. I am not blaming him for this. Yesterday, my son, 16 male, confessed to me and my wife that he is gay. My wife was counseling him, telling him it's okay, and that we will love him no matter what. But I was just speechless. I know it's not his fault he's gay, and I definitely don't hate him for it, but at that moment I just felt like my heart dropped down into my stomach. I never imagined my son, the person who would inherit my family's name, the man who I raised from a child to be a man, would turn out gay. My son realized I was not okay with it based on my reaction, and it upset him even more. He kept insisting for me to say something, but I just couldn't. I left the house and let my wife handle this. When I returned home, my wife acted extremely cold with me and told me that she will not be talking to me until I go to my son's room and apologize. I told her that I'm still upset about this situation and will talk to him once I feel better. I know I shouldn't have reacted like that, but it was difficult to control my feelings. Now that you guys read everything, do you guys still think I'm the a-hole here? Are you writing this out for pity, OP? I don't understand what's going on here. You've obviously done nothing to remedy the situation while upsetting everyone. Why do you think you wouldn't be the a-hole? You haven't given us a reason that you wouldn't be an a-hole in this situation. You were just asking us if we think you're not the a-hole, but how could we not think you're an a-hole after these actions? What's wrong with you? You are the a-hole. You're the a-hole. It was much harder for him to accept who he is and admit that than it was for you to hear. Isn't the height of traditional masculinity being able to swallow your feelings? OP easily could have said some reassuring words in the moment. Running away was such a weak move. You're the a-hole, agreed, but the way some people feel can't be immediately changed. He's the a-hole because he didn't show his feelings to his son. He should have told him he would need to adjust, but he will work on it and always try to accept who he is. Feelings are instinctual. It's not his fault. However, staying silent was not the way to go. He should have expressed love and told him that he'll always work towards accepting this reality. That's why he's the a-hole. No, it's a choice to be a homophobe. Don't say it's not his fault as if homophobia isn't a choice. Maybe that would work for a teenager, but a grown man should know better. Telling a teenager, I need to adjust, when they come out, is basically saying, give me some time to accept you as a human. In the meantime, I don't though. It's just a horrible notion overall. Don't defend the homophobia under the guise of, people can't help how they feel. Homophobia is a choice. Gay isn't. You're the a-hole. The way you're writing makes it seem you consider being homosexual a disease. Especially when you say it's not your son's fault being gay, yet your heart dropped into your stomach and you didn't expect your son you raised to turn out gay. He isn't diseased, he's gay. Cheer up. He likes dudes, and so what? What's so upsetting in this? Your wife likes dudes too, from what I gather. Some people like dudes, others like women, others both, others none, etc. How can your child's healthy romantic orientation upset you? So, requiring time to process this, and even leaving the house after the talk, is a very a-hole move. How do you think your son felt? He must have sensed your disappointment in him, and that's a terrible feeling for a child to have. Sounds like he considers it more like a crime than a disease. Not many parents will say, I didn't expect this son I raised to get cancer, like it was his fault. He makes it sound like the son told him that he was a serial killer. 100% you're the a-hole. Posted by someone that deleted their account. Titled, Am I the a-hole for losing it with my friend when she accused our other friend of ableism? The characters in this story are me, 24 male, Lucy, 24 female, and Joe, 25 male. A few years ago, I had a health condition which required me to undertake knee disarticulation surgery. In simple terms, my right leg was amputated from the knee, and all I have intact is the thigh. I have a prosthetic leg now. There's lots of things I can't do, and a big thing is going on runs. Once I was out of physical therapy, I did attempt to go jogging with my prosthesis, as it wasn't impossible to do. However, I found it extremely uncomfortable due to the movements of the prosthesis, and eventually gave up on attempting it. I've tried various other exercises involving legs over the years, and have concluded the only thing I'm comfortable with is walking. So I try to do that, and some other things to stay healthy. Before this, Joe used to be my running partner, and our friend Lucy was never interested. Joe came with me when I attempted to run again, and I told him clearly that my running days were over. He was a bit sad by it, but understood completely, and has since respected my wishes and never invited me out to runs with him. Here's the problem. Lucy started running and has been going out with Joe. She wondered why I wasn't going until she asked Joe one day in front of me. Joe just said outright, he literally has tried running and just can't do it anymore, so I don't invite him. Why should I? I don't know why, but Lucy took great offense to this. She accused Joe of discriminating against me and enforcing ableism, as he was basically choosing Lucy, who is able-bodied, over me. I told Lucy exactly what I told Joe, that I do not want to go out running, and there was nothing but truth in what he said. She wouldn't stop, and she was making me more and more ticked. I eventually got to the point where I said, "Lucy, just shut up. The only person creating an issue here is you, because there is no problem. I don't want to go fudging running." She left in a huff, and has since accused both me and Joe of being a-holes, but mainly me for losing it with her. I didn't mean to say what I guess was harsh, but she just kept pushing it, so am I the a-hole? No, Lucy obviously isn't on the same level of understanding as you guys are, and she's misinterpreting your wishes to not run again as some sort of conflict between you and Joe, and that Joe is discriminating against you and you're just hiding the pain and you're uncomfortable with it on the inside. I'm gonna stand up for justice, OP. We're gonna kick this bozo Joe right in his ableist face, we are. Screw him. At least that's where my thought process leads me to think that her thought process is going, and it's just one that I don't agree with. I think, OP, you were not the a-hole, and good on you for setting the record straight. She needs to calm down. I would somewhat lose it too if someone was saying that to me, because they clearly don't understand what they're talking about. Not the a-hole. You tried running again, and it wasn't for you. That should have been enough for Lucy to back off. She is just causing an argument out of thin air. Also, I would find it highly offensive if I told a friend I couldn't participate in an activity and they kept asking and badgering me about it. That, if anything, would have been ableism. Hey man, go do that thing you can't do anymore because you lost your leg. It's pretty heartless, isn't it? Oh my god, this drives me up a wall so much. I have a varying level of disability depending on how my body is doing. Nerve problems. There are some things that I'm never going to do again, and some things I can do sometimes, depending. It drives me absolutely bonkers when I clearly lay down where I am and what I'm capable to do on a particular day, and someone just has to question that and push me to do things I said I can't, especially when it's under the guise of concern or support. Are you my bloody doctor or physical therapist? No? Then shut the hell up and accept what I just said and move on. Extra irritation points when it's someone butting in like this person. My friends have known me for years, know why I turn stuff down, and will ask and move on if I say no. People who get fed up or offended when I say no and a friend goes to do whatever activity I can't join in on, like me not doing a thing, means they shouldn't too, are such a-holes. Not the a-hole. She sounds like the typical person who wants to be offended for someone else to make herself look like a good person, but at the same time doesn't care what the person she is offended for thinks. Posted by user Rumi Koi, titled, "Am I the a-hole for laughing at my friend who was cheated on by her boyfriend?" Hey, I know the title sounds off, but please read. So I have this female friend, Jane, fake name. We've been friends since high school. We were neighbors and we got along pretty well. In college, I met my ex-fiancée Anna, fake name. We dated for 4 years. I introduced Anna to Jane and they instantly became friends. 5 months before our wedding, I learned that Anna had been cheating on me with her high school crush, and she later left me for this guy. I later came to learn that Jane and Anna were still close friends despite everything Anna put me through. I told her how uncomfortable it made me, but she got mad, saying I can't control who she's friends with. In fact, she saw nothing wrong with that since Anna and the other guy had feelings for each other, and that she had fallen out of love with me. We soon had a fallout. Last year, I ran into Jane, and we started talking again. Soon we were friends, but not as close as before. Last week, she came knocking at my house crying, asking if she could stay at my place for a while. I said okay. The following day, she breaks down into tears, saying she just found out that her boyfriend has been cheating on him. I couldn't help but smile a bit, and I let it slip that, well, karma's a tramp, isn't it? She got mad and locked herself in one of the spare bedrooms and didn't talk to me for 2 days. My cousin and my friends say that I was wrong for how I reacted, but I don't know. Am I really the a-hole here? I mean, Jane didn't cheat on you. Anna cheated on you. People can still remain friends with someone that had cheated on you, as unfortunate as that is. I don't think you get to dictate other people's friendships all too much, but I can see why you're not the a-hole in this instance. But at the same time, I can also see why you would be the a-hole. She's coming to you for support, and you're like, ha, sucks to be you. You got cheated on. How's it feel, huh? God, it's karma sucks, doesn't it? God, that sucks. Man, I wouldn't know how that feels. But on the flip side, she didn't really help you when you were cheated on, and then continued the friendship. So I can see why you would be salty, and you're hurt, and they're hurt, and you're just giving it back to them full circle. As you can tell, I'm doing a real stand-up job at explaining this one, but somehow, OP is not the a-hole in all of that, and that's just beautiful to me. Might get downvoted for this, but not the a-hole. When you were cheated on, Jane, by the looks of it, didn't give a crap. Now she's expecting you to give her sympathy, and that's BS. Exactly. OP gets cheated on. Jane stays friends with the cheater and says that the cheater didn't do anything wrong. Jane gets cheated on and expects sympathy from OP. OP, karma's a bear, but sure, you can stay at my house for free as long as you need to. Jane, shocked Pikachu face, not the a-hole. Maybe OP should suggest that Jane's cheating boyfriend had feelings for the other woman, and that makes everything okay. Oh, and not the a-hole. Oh my god, that really rubs salt in the wound right there. So mean, but warranted? Do you guys think it'd be warranted to say that to her? I'm not sure. I'm not that mean myself. I don't think I could bring myself to do that to someone. Not the a-hole. She had no problem justifying cheating when it happened to you, just so she could stay friends with Anna, even though Anna hurt you. This might be bad to say, but I think something like this kind of needed to happen to her so she can put things in perspective. Also, she totally owes you an apology. Edit. I also want to add that you shouldn't be too hard on her right now because she's probably hurting a lot. It's never fun to get cheated on, but I do think that this should be a learning moment for her. Everyone sucks here. Neither of you seem to hold each other's best interest at heart. She was wrong for what she did, but what you did was wrong and full of spite towards a person crumbling in front of you. You two just shouldn't be friends. Friends don't treat each other like this. Might be downvoted for this, but I feel like the strong lasting friendships are more like this. The kind that you can call each other out on each other's bullcrap and come back out on top as long as the other person is accepting of how they wrongly treated the person in that past. The person in the past, we've got babushka dolls going on? Because despite OP's one comment, they are still allowing Jane to stay at their place while they figure everything out despite the past. God, I really hope you guys aren't judging babushka doll Markee inside of me. His feelings get hurt way easier than mine. Posted by user SnooMacaroon7686. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my child speak her native language at home? Title isn't as bad as it sounds. That's what they all say. You're always lying, am I the a-hole? You always lie to me. My 35 male, wife, 32 female, is Welsh and I am English. But if you get right down to it, we're both British anyway. She's always been kind of funny about identifying as Welsh and not British, no matter how many times I tell her they're not mutually exclusive, lol. I'm really tired of having to put up with her extreme nationalism. First of all, she insisted that our daughter have a Welsh name, so now my family can't even pronounce it or spell it. Typical. I have to put up with jokes about my daughter's name all the time, and her name getting spelled wrong all the time. The only primary school in the area is a Welsh school, so my daughter has started learning all her schoolwork through Welsh. This is fine, I guess. It's pointless, but other than not being able to help her with her homework, which her mum does anyway, it's not an issue. The issue is that my daughter has started speaking Welsh with her mother's family, her mother, and her friends outside of school. I asked her to stop, but my wife said I was being really rude to ask her to stop speaking in her native language. But she can speak English too? It's not her native language when her father doesn't speak it. My wife said I'm an a-hole because I agreed to raise our child bilingually, but I was under the impression that our daughter would still choose to speak English because it's all around us. She speaks English and Welsh at home, sometimes mixing them both. It's confusing and can't be good for her education to be learning it in a pointless language. What happens when she goes to university in English? My wife says I should get lessons for Welsh and she would be happy to pay and help. But I really don't see the point in learning a dead language when we can all just speak English. Am I the a-hole for wanting my child to speak English? I don't know how far the stick up your ass is going and tickling your brain up there, OP, but it sure is having some fun up there, isn't it? Seems like it's affecting your ability to empathize with your own immediate family and see that, hey, we're allowed to speak Welsh if we want. It shouldn't be embarrassing me, but it is. I'm inferior. I don't know what's going on. I don't think you realize just how many people still speak Welsh, and languages die when people don't speak them. Why would we not continue to speak the language so it doesn't die? You're just encouraging languages to die out. That's an a-hole thing in and of itself. I encourage you to go learn Welsh and support your family more. You're the a-hole. Edit. Okay, but now my wife is making me sleep on the couch while she thinks about our relationship. Am I still the a-hole when she's willing to disrupt our child's life because I want my child to speak a language everyone speaks? Are you listening to yourself, OP? Edit. I'm okay with her learning Welsh, just not speaking it at home all the time. It's stupid having a three-way conversation when people aren't speaking the same language, but my daughter insists on using Welsh. Edit. I'm not going to answer questions that ask me why I married my wife. I married her because I love her, and of. Why do you have to point that out? What the hell? Edit. Going to bed. Some comments have given me some insights, and I can't ignore all the You're the a-hole posts. I thought maybe it was just the Welsh being at it again. But, well, there's more of you calling me an a-hole than there are Welsh speakers. Oi, come on now. I'll have a think and chat with my wife tomorrow. Edit. I'm having a lot of trouble sleeping, I'll be honest. Might have something to do with me being 100% an a-hole to my wife and daughter. A lot of mixed feelings. How do I explain that I still feel like I'm right, but I know now that I'm wrong? We live in the countryside, and it's been hard with lockdown. I couldn't work, and I was surrounded by all the Welsh in my home without any English outlet of my own. I was wrong and very bitter, and used those bitter feelings against my own family. I'm going to tell my wife that I'll get Welsh lessons, and I plan on couples counseling for us, so that I can properly work through my crap. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who helped me grow up, and see that my daughter was more important than my childish, selfish reasons. I was so screwed up, unwilling to learn because I was already behind, and I'd like to thank those who shared their stories of learning Welsh. My daughter's name is Megan, or Megan, for those people asking. Edit. My wife insists that we pronounce Megan the Welsh way. It sounds beautiful, but she gets annoyed that my family pronounces it like Southerners. So I popped it into Google Translate and it's Megan. It sounds like a weird Jamaican mix, but it is what it is. You're the a-hole. 1. Welsh is not a dead language. 2. You and your wife agreed to raise your daughter as bilingual. Stop trying to go back on your agreement. 3. Being bilingual as a child is a great thing. It will not hurt her chances at university. Educate yourself. I love how OP calls it extreme nationalism too. Like it's so crazy to encourage your daughter to learn 2 languages, of which is extremely beneficial, as you mentioned. OP is acting utterly ridiculous about this. You're the a-hole. Posted by user Asking Because Drama. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my mum that she is the common denominator? Throwaway account due to the drama. I, 28 female, have a strained relationship with my mum. Growing up, my mum verbally and emotionally abused my dad, which caused him to file for divorce and file for custody for myself and brother, 31 male, when we were young. I was 9, my brother was 12. We saw her every other weekend growing up, wherein she focused her attacks on my brother for some reason. We thinks it because he looks more like my dad than me, and however, due to the abuse, my brother cut contact with her when he was 18 and went to college, but kept in contact with our dad. I never really stepped up the visits with my mum, but they trickled away on her end as she started dating again. My brother and my father no longer contact her, along with some extended family, but I keep talking to her because, well, she's my mum. I mean, I have to put her in timeout, and she has genuinely apologized several times over the years, so I mostly limit contact. I don't know, hard to explain. But over the past 2 years, her behavior has just gotten worse and worse. And during quarantine, her need to latch onto me seems to have hit an all-time high. The cause of this was her discovering my brother got married last year and never told her or invited her. She came over to my place and began her usual rant of how dad turned my brother against her, how I'm all she has, and then cut into me as soon as she was done. I served her lunch and she complained that it wasn't good. She asked why I don't have a boyfriend, because I just started dating again after leaving an abusive relationship ? Why didn't I move into a bigger apartment for her? Why this? Why that? I'm too fat. Hearing that attack on my body was the last straw, because it was one of my ex's favorite things to say. I got defensive and told her that if this is how she treats people she supposedly loves, maybe it's not others that are the problem. Maybe she is the common denominator. I then kicked her out, telling her to come back when she could string a sentence together that isn't an insult. This is the first time I've stood up to my mother in this extreme of a manner. I was shaking and had a panic attack afterwards. She spammed my phone, and I got some emails from some family that actually talked to her, chewing me out, and that I am all she has, and I'm starting to feel guilty. I mean, she is my mum. Am I the a-hole? Just sounds like she's gaslighting you and abusing you, and you understand where all of this is coming from, but no one else in your family understands or wants to deal with the problem. Maybe it's time to put mum in timeout again, let her have a few months to herself, figure it out, let quarantine and lockdown chill out for a bit, keep her away from you. You are most certainly not to blame. You're giving your mother a chance, and she's taking her frustrations out on you. You gotta teach her that that's unacceptable, and she needs to learn her lesson. If she doesn't learn her lesson again, guess what she gets? That's it. There is no leeway. There is no space for errors. 1, 2, 3 strikes. Sorry, Mum. You know what was coming. Bye. Not the a-hole. No, you're not the a-hole. From the sound of it, telling your mum that she is the common denominator is spot on. Mum or no, you have no obligation to put up with her abuse. You deserve better than this. Honestly, it seems like your dad and brother had the right idea. Let her turn her venom onto the family that's currently chewing you out for a bit. Yep, if she's got family, OP is not all she has. The others don't want to deal with her either, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Honestly, congrats on standing up to your narcissistic mother. It's a hard thing. I'd get some therapy, as narcissistic parents hurt you in ways that you don't fully see. Your brother who ran off is what is stereotypically called a scapegoat, while she may have used you as a golden child. If other family members come at you, call them what they are, flying monkeys. Their job in this case is to make you feel guilty for not allowing her to abuse you. My stepdaughter, who is 20, dealt with this and went full no contact when she was 17. She was happier and has had therapy. Once again, congratulations on standing up for you. Posted by user Bo Bandit, titled, Am I the a-hole for causing a scene at my grandfather's funeral? For background, I'm 21 female and my sibling is 23 NB. They are androgynous in appearance and have rainbow-dyed hair. None of us get along with my dad's side of the family because they are very religious and can be rude and downright homo/transphobic. My grandma uses horrible slurs casually. I have almost had no contact with that side of my family in 2 years. Both my siblings and I are atheists. My grandpa died earlier this week, and his funeral was today. I was at this church my cousin is a part of, and trust me, it is weird. Like, lizard people run the government, and 5G gives you the corona. Kinda weird. My contribution to the funeral was buying and supplying all of the food and drinks, plates, cups, etc. for my family. When my sibling walked in, I saw the pastor stare at them, and the pastor eventually walked up to us and asked how we knew the deceased. I said we were his grandchildren. He then asked, "Are you a gay?" I know he directed it at my sibling, but I also know how sensitive my sibling is to homophobia. So I responded, "If you mean gay, yes, I am gay." He then asked us both to leave. At this point, everyone was watching us, and my sibling was tearing up. I am super protective of them. I told the pastor that this was a celebration for my grandfather that I had helped arrange, and I would not be leaving because it was my right to be here. He had a long speech about how he wouldn't have any gays pushing their agenda at his house of God. My grandma said, "Maybe it's best if you leave," across the room. When she said that, I said, "Fine, we'll go." So my siblings started to cry and got up to leave. But before they did, I got them to help me carry all of the food, sandwiches, wraps, veggies, drinks, desserts, that I had brought back to my car. My whole family watched us silently. I don't know what happened after that, but we took a bunch of the food to our neighbor's house and had a sort of picnic with them. My mum and dad were absolutely furious after. They said we should not have made a scene because it was for my grandpa and not about us. I had already paid my respects and said my goodbyes to Grandpa when I saw him in the hospital before he died, and so had my sibling. We were only at the church because it was polite to attend. My grandma is a narcissist and has lately been thriving on all the attention that her husband's death has given her. She wore an elaborate ball gown-style dress to the funeral like she was going to the prom. So I'm sure she's loving all the attention that my family is giving her since queers stole the food at the funeral. So, am I the a-hole for quote-unquote causing a scene at the funeral and taking back all the food that I brought? P.S. Everyone except for the pastor wore masks and social distanced. The funeral was invite only because of a limit of the amount of people that we could accommodate safely. Classic story of homophobia going rife in institutions like this. Absolutely not acceptable behavior by the pastor. Absolutely not acceptable for other people to be enabling these disgusting and barbaric, beliefs. I don't feel like it's acceptable in this day and age. I don't understand how these things continue to go. Opie is not the a-hole for causing a scene by taking the food back that they provided for their grandpa's funeral. I mean, to be excluded from someone's celebration of life, absolutely disgusting, and I feel so bad for the OP. Not the a-hole. You didn't make a scene, the pastor did. You existed, and he had a problem with said existence. If he had kept his mouth shut at a bloody funeral, things would have been fine. Instead, he had to push his agenda instead of letting your family grieve a loved one. Your family needs to realize you did nothing but answer a question, were called a slur, and were asked to leave because of it. That isn't your fault at all, bloody bigots. If the pastor is part of a convention, like a Southern Baptist, Methodist, etc., or a diocese, like a Catholic, report them to their superiors. That's inexcusable behavior for a man of God. You might not think this will help, but you'd be surprised. Right? I could have sworn Jesus' first rule was empathy, followed by love your brother, followed by judge not lest ye be judged, and cast no stones as you've sinned too. And that's if you even agree that they've sinned, which I don't. Posted by user Lady Ashara D. Titled, Am I the a-hole for yelling at my neighbor because she called CPS on my husband? A little background. I, 32 female, live with my husband, 33 male, and our 2 children, Jake, 6 male, and Amy, 3 female. A young couple, probably in their early 20s, are our next-door neighbors. Now, 2 weeks back, my husband took Jake and Amy to a park nearby. Ideally, I would have gone too, as it's easier to manage the kids when we're both there. But I had an important office work that day, and husband had a day off. Jake wanted to use the swing, but husband forbade it since he was alone with the 2 of them and said that they'd just walk around. Sometime later, Amy got a pebble in her shoe or something, and he sat her down on a bench to check it. He specifically asked Jake to stay behind him, but Jake, I guess, really wanted to swing, and seeing his dad's attention elsewhere, decided to run for it. He was trying to go too fast, lost his balance, and fell. All of this happened in a matter of seconds. That was it. They came back home, we talked to Jake about it, and told him why he was wrong, and we all moved the hell on. Imagine our surprise when CPS, or the equivalent to CPS in our country, we don't live in the US, pulls up at our door and says that they've been given reports about how my husband was a negligent parent and how he put Jake's life in danger. They mentioned the park incident, where, according to their version, my husband totally forgot about Jake, and that led to Jake seriously hurting himself. There were no serious injuries. He had minor scratches on his hands and knees. Obviously, they did not find anything wrong, didn't tell us about the identity of the reporter though. Husband mentioned that our neighbors were present that day in the park, and later when I asked, the woman confessed. She even went on to say that my husband was almost abusive, and that she was just looking out for Jake. Why do I believe my husband's version and not hers? Well, firstly, he's my husband and I trust him, and also because Jake confessed he disobeyed his dad. I was super mad at this, and I generally don't get that angry, but she was accusing my husband of being abusive, and she called CPS on him. I yelled at her that she didn't know crap about anything, and she was just trivializing abuse and parental negligence. She cried, and I told her to F off. Her boyfriend thinks that she was just mistaken, and I should forgive mistakes. Am I the a-hole? If someone reports you and gets you in a situation where there is a potential, no matter how small, for your children to be taken off of you because of a minor incident that they misinterpreted, I feel like you have full rights to get angry, like OP is getting. I feel like it's unacceptable to report that if it's genuinely not abuse. You just think it's abuse. Obviously, there should be times where discretion is used and you should be reporting abuse, but the way that things happened with this kid falling over and going back to his dad is in no universe warranting a CPS call. Simply unacceptable. I would get even angrier than OP is getting at this woman. She deserves that hate and negativity. That was a mistake. She's gonna learn that it was a mistake and not to do it again. Not the a-hole OP. That type of mistake could destroy family lives. A child running off while a parent is distracted by another parent is normal behavior. That neighbor needs to mind her own damn business. Now, if true abuse or neglect was ongoing, I would support it. But a kid being a kid? Good on you for standing up for that one. Nothing worse than neighborhood busybodies measuring the world with their personal metric. Ask Freakout Franny how she'd feel if you called the cops to report how abusive her husband is the next time that they get into an argument. I mean, they're shouting, so obviously that means he's beating her within an inch of her life, right? No? Oh, oops. Just a mistake, hey? Hopefully they aren't parents. I had a neighbor who parked his 10-ton truck in the street every day, suburban streets. One night, he got home at like 10 p.m., reverse beepers on full sound reversing up his driveway. Woke up my then 1-year-old, who's only just gone to sleep as he was suffering cramp. Poor kid woke up and screamed for hours. I was rocking and shushing and soothing him the whole time, but he was unwell and couldn't get back to sleep. Those very same neighbors called our CPS equivalent on me. Had police come round and do a welfare check early next morning. Police said everything was fine, but I was fudging shaken. You betcha every single time that truck was covering my driveway, I called the council. Every time they used a power tool past the noise cutoff time, called the police. We only lived there a couple more months, but all the crap I had been putting up with to try and be a good neighbor, all of it gone. Talk to your neighborhood crows if you have any. I crap you not, my old sow of a neighbor turned me into the HOA for having a murder of crows living in my yard. Obviously it didn't go anywhere, so she began to yell at them. And so begins our multi-year war of the crows and the old hag. Every year they dive bomb her, and every year she screams at them, reinforcing the behavior. Me and the crows were cool. I really didn't care for them either until they gave me a reason to love them. To forgive her mistake, she needs to call CPS and rescind her statement. She needs to say, I overreacted, and if I can write a letter or anything that will undo what I did, I'd like to. For her to say he was almost abusive is to say he was not abusive. I'm a dad, and am probably almost abusive all the time. For example, I feed my kids vegetables, but the vegetables are next to the napkins. And if you think about it, I'm almost feeding them napkins just about every day. Posted by user FluffyBase6635. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not apologizing for how I reacted to my daughter coming out as gay? My daughter recently told us that she is a lesbian. That is completely fine, and I have no problem with anyone's sexuality. I am the least emotional person ever. I hate showing emotions when I actually feel them, which is pretty rare, and I certainly don't fake them because it is socially expected. I am so in love with my husband, but if you watch our wedding video, I look bored. My daughter knows this. I said I was happy for her, and of course we support her. Her sisters were making a big deal of how proud they were, and hugging her, and she was emotional, but that is just never going to be me. She got angry and said that I wasn't being supportive. My older daughter said that isn't fair because I had the same reaction when she told me she was engaged, and when she told me she was pregnant, and that's just me. My daughter wants me to apologize for not supporting her sexuality, but I told her I'm not going to apologize when I literally said I support her, and she knows this is how I am, and that I've never been homophobic or anything in the past. No, I can't fault you for that behavior, OP. She's trying to milk a reaction that you don't give, and if you did give her that reaction, she would probably feel like it was ingenuine, and you don't want to have a fake reaction that is, literally just guilted out of you by your daughter. I don't know where she's suddenly getting this urge to have a huge emotional reaction from you, but, you're not obliged to do it. Everyone else understands. I don't understand why she won't accept that. You're not the a-hole. Keep doing what you're doing. Not the a-hole. We need to get away from the idea that it is reasonable to dictate other people's reactions. It's not, and she should know her mother better. Not the a-hole. I came out decades ago. I'm also very private and introverted. While acceptance has come very far, it seems to have swung to a degree that would make me profoundly uncomfortable to have to perform for people who make a huge deal out of coming out. Applause, balloons, cheering. If that's not you, either as the parent or the gay child, then do what means the most to you. Your actions in the upcoming months and years will attest to the genuine nature of how you accept your daughter. This coming out is such a strange act when you really look at it. Nobody has to open a box full of pink and blue balloons or slice a special cake to say, I'm straight, because that's the default. But when it comes to being gay, there seems to be this social expectation that people will make a huge deal out of it. It's honestly almost borderline homophobic that we expect this kind of detail and explanation about a person's sexual attractions when they don't conform to heteronormativity. For me, I would hate for my kids to feel like they had to do a big gay song and dance. I want them to grow up knowing that I don't care much about who they want to F, and I'll be delighted to meet any man, woman, or gender non-conforming individual that they bring home. Not the a-hole OP. When my friend came out to me, I basically said, cool, and continued with our conversation, which was about sexuality. The next time I saw them, I acknowledged that them coming out to me was a huge sign of trust, and that I understand how difficult that was, and it might have seemed like I didn't care too much about their coming out. That wasn't the case. I just didn't care about their sexuality. Posted by user Wordic2, titled, Am I the a-hole for not having a relationship with a child born out of my dad's affair? I'm 24, and my younger sisters are 22 and 20. When I was 10, my dad left my mum for a woman that he was having an affair with. Their baby was born a few months later. I didn't go for visitation, and would only see my father alone a few times a month. Eventually, my sisters followed me and refused to visit in his home. My half-brother is now 14, my siblings and I do not have any relationship with him. We don't blame him, but we are just happier keeping things separated. Our half-brother has messaged all three of us separately on Instagram a few times. My youngest sister was the only one who replied, and basically told him sorry, but it's best to keep things the way they are. I've just never responded. The last time we had dinner with our dad, he brought our half-brother along. The three of us left quietly without eating, and I later cursed out my dad for creating a very crappy situation. All three of us haven't talked to our dad since. I'm sorry if our dad and half-brother are hurt, but unfortunately, it's a crappy situation, and we're happy as we are. Am I the a-hole? This is a hard one to judge. I want to give it a no a-holes here situation, because no one really is an a-hole. I mean, the worst coming from this is that you're not enabling a relationship with your half-brother, and that can break his heart. But I guess you're well within your right to not establish that relationship, as you don't have to. But I imagine if he's someone that wants that connection with his family, he wants to get to know his siblings, I can imagine that would hurt him quite a lot. Especially if you guys just to walk away from the dinner like that, and hurt him even more. Your dad sucks here for putting him in that situation if he knew that you guys were going to stand up the dinner date and just walk away like that. It feels like your dad was setting up the brother for pain, and he's not doing his job as a father to keep the peace and find the best solution for everyone in this situation. But then I also take into consideration, I don't know if I can blame him for trying. It's better than not trying in some instances. So I'm torn. I want to say either everyone sucks here or no a-holes here. It's hard to make a judgment on this one. Info. Why do you maintain a relationship with your dad, who is the biggest a-hole here, but refuse to talk to his kid? I could see dad cutting off, and thus functionally the kid, but it makes zero sense to keep the old man around if you're not going to accept your brother. It's barely a relationship if I'm being honest, and it's a relationship that we are stringing along at the insistence of my mother. But after the crappy thing he did at the last dinner, I don't think we'll be seeing much of him going forward. Yeah, I think that would be for the best. Keeping your dad in the picture, but refusing to get to know your brother, sends a pretty devastating message to a young boy. Yeah, that's pretty sad for the kid who has done nothing wrong and reached out again and again. Soft a-hole here. You could cut them both out, or cut your dad and give the kid a chance. You are harboring a lot for your failed parents' relationship well over a decade ago. Even your mum has moved on and is clearly trying to keep everyone happy, and you, well, not so much. Look at the other comments. It's pretty clear she and her sisters resent the child's very existence. It's fine if they want nothing to do with their father and the kid, but man, Walking out like that, ignoring and resenting the child who has done nothing wrong in all of this, makes me sick to my stomach. He's going to grow up knowing he has 3 big sisters who hate him and want nothing to do with him because of what his father did. He's being shamed for his very birth as though it was his fault. I hope he gets some therapy because that stuff will F you up in life. But they aren't obligated to have anything to do with him. Why should they be forced to have a relationship with some completely random kid just because their dad cheated and screwed another woman? He has literally nothing to do with them. That sucks for the kid, but at the end of the day, his dad is the only one to blame. He's the one that made the decision to make 2 separate families. He's to blame if those families don't want to gel. They didn't treat him like a random kid though. They treated him like someone they actively can't stand to be in the same room with. Even if they don't want to foster a relationship, walking into dinner and walking right back out the second they see his face is pretty fudging harsh. Probably because, consciously or subconsciously, OP and her sisters see the kid as the living embodiment of the destruction of their family and their dad's infidelity, and they want nothing to do with that. Is this fair to the kid? No. But nothing is fair in this world, and OP and her sisters shouldn't have to have a relationship with someone they don't see as family. Hell, it's probably better that there isn't a relationship. It'd just bring misery to everyone all around. Posted by user Raichi2009, titled, Am I the a-hole for being livid? My significant other volunteered for a year-long deployment without talking to me about it. First, some backgrounds. We have a very energetic 4-year-old, and I work a 50-hour-a-week job. The closest family and friends live 3 hours away. On top of that, he has already been away on pandemic orders since March and now deploying in October. I found out accidentally that my husband volunteered for a year-long deployment and I was ticked. He has been lying this entire time, saying it was not his choice. Obviously I believed him because that's how the military works. When I found out, I basically told him that all my trust in him is gone, and I refuse to spend my life being lied to and not having a say in our major life choices. He said I was overreacting, and he was doing what was best for us. I've been so overwhelmed, working from home with my child alone, and trying to accept that I will be doing this alone for the next year. And now this? Edit. This is an MOB where he will be staying in an extended stay hotel, not in a combat zone. Edit 2, he is a reservist, not active duty. I know barely anything about military, but I don't think you need to know much about it to understand that he chose to go away for a year when he didn't need to do that, and it was not acceptable in this family dynamic that you guys have got going on. I don't think anyone can blame you for being mad at that. Obviously, you would be the a-hole if this was the military putting him up and he had no choice. So in this situation, I feel like your anger is entirely warranted. And who knows what else he's doing if he's able to lie to you like this. This could just be the smoke you're smelling from a huge wildfire. Who knows? Not the a-hole. I don't think you're overreacting. It sounds to me like he's avoiding his responsibilities to you and your child to get away, and trying to use his service as a shield for any blame. While I respect his service to our country, it's crappy of him to use deployment as a get-out-of-jail-free card. Besides, there is a massive difference between being forced to deploy and voluntarily doing it at a time where you clearly need him. In regular work, there are things you need to volunteer for if you ever want your career to progress. I imagine it's even more so in the military. So I wouldn't just assume he's trying to avoid family work. The problem is, all we can do is assume stuff because this dude didn't communicate anything. OP has to be included in these discussions, and him just deciding he is doing what is best for them without her input makes him an a-hole. I mean, yes, it's true this move will likely help his career. However, I can't think of a single circumstance under which it's reasonable or okay for a parent to unilaterally decide on a career move of any kind that involves being away from their family for an entire year. If someone got offered a once-in-a-lifetime, year-long research contract somewhere they couldn't bring their family along, they would be expected to discuss it with their spouse before accepting. Doing any less is crap, and lying about it is just the icing on the cake. Okay, and I think that's where we're going to end today's episode, guys. As always, I do hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned something from these stories. Just want to say a quick shout out to my Patreon subscribers and my channel members. You guys should be on the screen right now. If you do see yourself, I want you to give yourself a little pat on the back for being amazing and supporting me on this channel, this little journey we're going on the YouTubes. I really appreciate it, and you guys enabled me to do all this amazing work. So if you do see yourself, I love your face and I'm happy to see you. Also guys, if you want to pitch in your own support, you don't have to, but channel links are down in the description below to support the Patreon, the channel membership, whatever you want to do. It's kind of like tipping me if you feel like I'm doing a good job on this channel. I will be opening up avenues for content on those in the future. Just right now I'm kind of bogged down and stuck in Ireland, but you know, it is what it is. Anyway, guys, with that said, I do hope you have a wonderful day today. Whatever you're up to, I'd love to know down in the comments below. I do hope you have a good day, night, sleep. Whatever you're up to today, tell me, and I'll see you in the next episode, guys. Bye.